the religious people in America that are part of what I call Marxianity or a religious Trojan horse or the coming religious right. No, of course, not all religious people, not all Christians, not all evangelicals. It's a segment of them. And many of them are playing patty cake with the Marxist. Many of them are playing patty cake with the social justice crowd. Many of them are playing kumbaya and interfaith dialogue with known jihadis or jihadi-tied individuals. How is America being brought down by such a religious Trojan horse? Usama Dakdok, Shahram Hadian will join us on that. So we got, again, Usama Dakdok, Shahram Hadian. We've got Dr. Rob Lindstead. We've got our reporter Aaron Lavarco in Israel, and then Dr. Mark Lucky and Mike Hammond. We got a big night. We better get to it. By the way, don't forget about all of our sponsors at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. You'll find a lot of them there, like Worldview Talk. Find out about how you can get your own solar generator, folks. Get a solar generator. Find out about how you can get a satellite phone. You can find out about their bulletproof backpacks. You can find out about their Faraday bags. You can find out about how to protect yourself from EMF, electromagnetic force. You can find out about how to get a bivvy so you can text through your cell phone, but use your cell phone to text and then send it through a bivvy, which goes to a satellite. So if there's a communication disruption, all of this stuff is at worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. Check out all of our sponsors. And by the way, use that number if you have questions, because you're going to want to ask questions before you buy a solar generator. 1-866-738-3224, 1-866-738-3224. Let me mention this real quick. The Worldview Tube Vault. Worldview Tube Vault. This is 35 years of my ebooks, audiobooks, transcripts, radio shows, TV shows, and so much more. 35 years. And you're going to be able to live stream things like you did this last weekend with J.J. Carroll, Colonel Rob Maness, and Todd Binsman in studio. The next event we have is April 15th in Milwaukee, a live event with myself, our reporter from Israel, Aaron Lavarco, and Dr. Andy Woods. And it'll only, unless you're there in person, only those who have a vault will be able to live stream it. Get your vault. And then we're going to live stream our fall conference next year. So you could go to the Worldview store and find out about that. You'll be able to live stream that because we only have seating for 350 people. These tickets are going fast. We only have seating for 350 people. Gordon Chang, Alex Newman, Sidney Powell, Dr. Lana, Chris Martinson, and the lead pollster at Rasmussen is Mark Mitchell. That's October 3rd and 4th. That's a Friday and Saturday night. Tickets are only $99. We're right outside of the Memphis, Tennessee area. Upscale, nice community. Full details there. But if you're a Vault member, guess what? If you're a Vault member, you can live stream it. But if you would like to get tickets to the fall event, our 22nd annual national conference, please go to worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com to get your tickets for that national conference. But again, if you're a Vault member, you and only you will be able to live stream it. Joining me now is Mike Hammond of Gun Owners of America. Did you ever think that Kash Patel would become the acting director of the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, ATF, in addition to being head of the FBI? It's like Christmas morning every day. Joining me now is Mike Hammond of Gun Owners America. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Brandon. Yeah, we pushed Kash, and we were successful in getting him confirmed.
Now, congratulations, and thank you for that. What do you make of him now becoming the acting director of the ATF?
For a while, there have, since about 1980, there have been plans to consolidate the BATF with the FBI, with a whole lot of other agencies. So it doesn't surprise me a bit.
Is he going to investigate the ATF and some of their corruption, or do you think there is corruption there?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. Given that he is a Trump appointee, I hope that he is going to not only investigate ordinary citizens like you and me, but in fact investigate that agency.
Mm-hmm. What do you think he might do with this case of the airport director in Little Rock being shot in the head and killed at his house? What do you think is going to happen with that case?
Yeah, well, it certainly is really suspicious, and it's something that needs to be looked into.
What do you think that whole thing was about? I mean, he is a airport director. Obviously, he's had all kinds of background checks to be in that position, and they raid his house in the dark, and he gets shot.
Yeah, it's not the first time that an individual has been assassinated at his own home, nor I think will it be the last. But yeah, it's worth looking into.
I heard a news article today, which I'll play in a minute. The ATF does about 11,000 of these raids a year in America. That sounds awfully high to me, doesn't it to you?
Well, no, it doesn't sound high to me because I understand how abusive that agency is.
Wow. Okay. What else do you think is coming with the Trump administration, with Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, deputy director? What do you see happening here?
Well, I'm hoping that some of our people from Gun Owners America are going to be part of that team.
Whoa, and, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Back up. Really?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's better being on the outside of the cage spitting in than inside of the cage spitting out.
So there must be some talks going on for you to hint at that, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that there is a possibility that people like me might be part of the Trump administration.
Okay, hold on. There we go. I was about to go there. I was about to say, could we have any such hope of Mike Hammond going back in? Because you drafted some of the great bills. There is a possibility.
There is a possibility. I was asked by Ronald Reagan's Defense Department I was begged to join the Defense Department, and I turned it down. And I'm not sure that I would turn it down this time.
Wow. Because you negotiated some key things for a member of Congress in the Roosevelt Room, just steps from the Oval Office.
The McClure-Volkmer Firearms Owners Protection Act, which lays out most of the good things in modern federal gun law. So,
wow. Okay. So let's say you go in, what agency you think you would work with, and what is it you would want to accomplish?
Well, I'd like to go into the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. I'd like to, I think, finally abolish it. Back in 1980, we considered abolishing BATF, and we basically turned down that opportunity. And I'm not sure that we would this time.
Are you saying it would just be replaced by another agency, or
Well, that's the interesting thing, whether it's replaced by a tougher agency or not. That was the big issue back in 1980. But I think that in effect, BATF is sufficiently bad so that other agencies might not successfully replace it.
Are we entering? I mean, you came with and worked through the Reagan administration. Are we going to see a time of liberty and freedom here? And are we going to see fruits legislatively, not just executive orders?
I hope so. I hope Trump is a lot better than Ronald Reagan. I was on two Ronald Reagan transition teams, education and justice. And so arguably, I was much more responsible than I would care to admit.
Would you say that we need to get a lot of these things are being done by executive orders in legislation?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We need to legislate where legislation is appropriate and execute when execution is appropriate.
Now, some people have been concerned about Pam Bondi's comments on some issues related to the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah, we oppose Pam Bondi's support for red flag laws, among other things, and we're very suspicious of Pam Bondi in number of respects. So I hope that Pam Bondi basically proves better than we had expected.
Okay, what other things should you inform our audience about before we let you go?
How much time do you have? There are lots and lots of issues on the table. Donald Trump has an opportunity to change the country, and let's hope that he does.
Okay, more at gunowners.org, gunowners.org. Is there any congressional legislation that our people should be calling about? Let people know about?
The reconciliation bill. I mean, we've been pushing for reciprocity on the reconciliation bill, but I'm not sure basically how successful or unsuccessful that's going to be.
But you're more hopeful now, are you, for the Second Amendment than you have been in years?
I'm more hopeful now than we have been in years because Donald Trump is in office, and I think he will prove to be a lot better than even Ronald Reagan did.
Wow.
So,
before I let you go, did you hear about the 14-year-old boy? It was in my news report tonight. The 14-year-old boy that shot 2 intruders and killed them dead that come into his house with guns?
Yeah, well, good for him.
Good for him. Mike, gunowners.org, gunowners.org, and let's keep an eye on the ATF. And you may be going into the ATF to shut it down like Linda McMahon's going in to shut down the Department of Education.
It's possible. I went into the Legal Services Corporation, but failed to shut it down. So my record on shutting things down is far from superlative, but maybe I'll succeed this time.
Well, let's pray for that. Stay in touch. Keep your cell phone on.
Yep, will do.
Gunowners.org. Mike Hammond checking in. Gunowners.org. You need to watch this report because this is what I'm talking about as far as the ATF and the need to look into them. Watch this news report out of, I think this is out of Little Rock.
Lawmakers are questioning the circumstances leading to the death of Little Rock Airport Director Brian Malinowski. He died at his home in March following a 6 a.m. shootout with ATF agents conducting a search warrant at his home. One agent was also shot. And today, as our Neil Zarang tells us, lawmakers got the chance to ask the director of the ATF about the incident.
There are numerous different things that I believe that are out there that may not be shown to be the facts when the investigation happens.
What's true and what's hearsay during the search warrant executed at Little Rock Airport Director Brian Malinowski's home is still shrouded. ATF Director Stephen Dettelbach said he wasn't aware of the mission, which turned deadly, until after the fact, and the agency does 11,000 of these types of missions a year.
You got to admit, this is a little unique. The highest paid official in the municipal government, Little Rock, Arkansas, no criminal background history, no, nothing. When it sure looks like you could have served this search warrant when he wasn't there, but you decided not to.
The hearing revealed new video showing ATF agents gathering near Malinowski's home 1 week before the search in the same spot the morning of it. Malinowski's family alleges the first attempt was canceled because Brian was not home. California Republican Darrell Issa questioned why Malinowski needed to be home since there was no arrest warrant issued, just a search warrant for dealing with firearms without a license and unlawful acquisition of a firearm.
So you alleged a crime, but you didn't seek to arrest him, did you?
It's not fair to do this during the pendency of a criminal investigation.
Lawmakers asked some general questions about tactics, policies, and body cameras. Not much was shared to avoid giving a blueprint to the public, but Dettelbach stated 3 years after the implementation of body cameras became mandated within the ATF, a third currently have them.
How long will this take to implement?
Currently, with what we have now, without anything else, we will be implemented across the country by end of 2026. If there's more resources, we can try to speed that up.
Regarding Malinowski, the ATF director said the most common type of firearm trafficking is now selling guns without a license. And 60% of those firearms are going to felons and those prohibited from having them.
Firearms trafficking is not a victimless crime.
Just a week ago, under an ATF rule change in compliance with the 2022 Safer Communities Act, those who can legally sell guns privately changed. The rule change is laid out over 16 pages with about 400 additional pages clarifying it.
How many firearms does someone have to sell to be engaged in the business of firearm dealing?
There's now more information than ever in the form of that rule for specific conduct-based.
I think just for a regular person, more information than ever is probably less helpful than if you sell 3 guns, you're not a dealer, and if you sell 4 guns, then you are a dealer.
Yeah, and that's the issue. It's so cut and pick and confusing that people that are trying to comply with it don't know whether they're able to comply or not because they're not sure how to interpret the law and the requirements. And again, what was the objective here? This guy was a director of an airport in Little Rock, Arkansas. I read that he liked to, basically had a hobby. He liked to go to gun shows and he had a little hobby, a little side business and hobby. I don't think this guy was deliberately selling guns to criminals because if that were the case, don't you think they would have already come out now and told us that? What was this really all about? Maybe one of the questions is, what did this guy see, if anything, at the airport? Did he see something he wasn't supposed to see? Did he know about something he wasn't supposed to know about? And was this simply a great cover to eliminate this man? I'm not making statements or making accusations. I'm asking questions. Because a lot of the times, it's not what you think. That's how a lot of these government groups work and muddy the waters. This shouldn't be a very confusing situation. Yeah, this is what he was doing. But they didn't have an arrest warrant. So why would you need to have a search warrant to carry out a search when he wasn't there? Why didn't you go ahead and do it when he wasn't there so you can make it safer for everybody? This is why we need Kash Patel to investigate the ATF. All right, before we continue tonight, remember we're brought to you by you. Okay, we do so many things for free. Take a look at this, worldviewreport.com. Each and every day I'm putting up news stories, many of which we don't have time to cover here, but that doesn't mean they're not important. We put them up each and every day, news stories for you to know about, worldviewreport.com, worldviewreport.com. We do a free stream, each and every day. It's going 24/7 for you at worldviewtube.com. Then we put the articles up for you to look at again, or to read again, watch again, the shows, watch again, worldviewtube.com. Worldviewtube.com. Good evening, Dolly. Worldviewtube.com. You become quite the hit with our audience. You know, we get lots and lots. Hey, are you listening to me? We get lots of communications about how people love you. You're loved. Are you glad you're loved? Does that make you happy? You're a good girl. You're a little rambunctious last night. I watched the replay of that last night. You're a little out of control last night. You doing better tonight? You want a treat? You want some pumpkin? Oh, she loves her pumpkin. Gotta get pumpkin every day. Dad gives me pumpkin every day. Healthy. And you get Gatatana. So, folks, how do we do all this stuff for free? Well, one of the ways is by promoting things like Gatatana. Go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Let me type it in. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. There it is. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Go to the page. There you go. Gatatana. She gets a half a scoop every day in her food. And I take a whole scoop in water loaded with trace minerals, which are great for pets. Beta carotene, all kinds of other vitamins are great for me. 47% protein. There's multiple studies behind this, clinical trials behind this. There's a cat that had a tumor, got a ton of gone. Talked to one of my buddies last night. His poor dog's dying of cancer. I'm like, yep, tell me about it. I've had so many die of cancer. This is a quest to actually have a dog that lives 10 plus years and doesn't die of cancer. So I've got her on Gatatana every day, plus myself. So check it out right there. MelissaHouseBG.com. I'm sorry, MelissaHouseGPA.com. 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 As you know, I take the elixir each and every day. This is a great product. 80 clinical trials behind it. This you can get at MelissaHouseBG.com. MelissaHouseBG.com. All right. And then I also do the Numi. I swish with the Numi. This is lower the glutathione to detox our cells. And we know there's a lot of toxins out there in the food and the water and the air. There's toxins everywhere, Dolly. And so we like to swish with the Numi that has the Gatatana that helps to detox our cells. In fact, studies show it may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. So again, a lot of great products. Go back over to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Don't forget about the worldviewwater.net. I saw another one of those sell the other day. The under the water counter filter, which, by the way, again, you're filtering out all kinds of things that are not only harmful to you, but they're harmful to your pet. So Dolly loves this water. I've never had a dog drink so much water. And this is exactly what we were told, by the way. Nelson told us this would happen, that your dog will drink more water than you've ever seen them drink because they actually like the water, because they can taste those chemicals in your normal water. They don't like it. So go ahead, worldviewwater.net, worldviewwater.net, worldviewwater.net. All right. Does someone want to come grab that packet of Bella Grace before she breaks it open and gets it all over my beautiful logo in the middle of the floor? I don't know how she got that. She got a packet of Bella Grace. Did she break it? Let's see. Well, you'll know because you'll start seeing Bella Grace come out of it. She didn't. I don't know. That's a pretty strong packet. Look at that. I don't know how you didn't break that. There you go. Look, this, I don't know about giving you this, but it does sure taste good. It's great for me, though. Okay, I'll take this. You cannot have that. But then get the water. So you get your dog in that good water, plus yourself. Worldviewwater.net, worldviewwater.net. You know, I'm wearing the wrong color jacket for this. You're going to get your dog hair on this jacket, okay? Even though I gave you a little trim, you still shed a little bit, don't you? Worldviewwater.net, worldviewwater.net. Hey, don't forget we're coming to Milwaukee. April 15th. Check that out. Our Worldview Radio Understanding the Times Conference. It's free, but you got to get a ticket so that you can, you can't chew that up. It's free, but you got to get a ticket because we want to make sure we have enough seats out there for you, okay? You can do that by going to sponsors. Just go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors, or you can just go right to the website, which is worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/events. Okay, you can do that. All right. Now, don't forget, we also have, what else do we have? I don't know. That's enough for now. Don't you think? Check it all out. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Joining me now is Usama Dakdok and Shahram Hadian. Usama was born and raised in Iran until his earlier years when his daddy saw what was coming. He had been high-ranking in the Iranian military, got his family out right before the fall of the Shah, and we're thankful for that. He's a Christian. He was a Muslim. He became a Christian. He's been a pastor and is a pastor now. He's been a police officer. He has a broadcast here on the weekends on worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube.com. My other guest, Usama Dakdok, he was born and raised in Egypt. He was never a Muslim. He came from a Christian family. His daddy planted churches all over Egypt until Muslim Brotherhood, i.e. Hamas, burned them to the ground. They join me now to talk about something we've been tracking this character, Yasser Qadhi, for years. As you know, he came to my backyard in the Mid-South in 2017, did an interfaith dialogue with James White, a hyper-Calvinist false teacher. James White, I believe that's what he is theologically. Sorry, James, put that in your pipe and smoke it. And we started pointing out by playing the video what we were seeing and responding. And little did we expect the controversy. We thought it would come from the Muslim world. But no, it came from Phil Johnson, the executive director of John MacArthur's Grace to You. And we emailed John and said, hey, John, you might want to pull your guy off because pull your tech dog off because you preach sermons telling us we can't do this. And yet you're guys defending it and defending the guy that did it. And John MacArthur had nothing to say. He just let it keep going, apparently, even after we reached out to him and his elders, who, by the way, told us, don't contact us anymore. Real biblical church he's got going there, isn't it? And then on top of that, then they started some of MacArthur's people started doxing where I go to church and where I live. So there you go. So that's what we received from the evangelical side. The Muslim side actually treated us pretty decently. I know, isn't that ironic? We exposed an interfaith dialogue with a Jew-hating, Holocaust-denying, Hitler-defending, jihadi-preaching Imam Yasser Qadhi, who's building a 400-acre compound, which is what we're going to get to tonight, in Texas. And the governor of Texas is saying, wait a minute, we can't have this Sharia neighborhood? What? So we thought we'd get the backlash for exposing Yasser from the Muslim world. Well, to their credit, they did nothing to us. They said nothing virtually, really, not much at all. It was the evangelical world and the hyper-Calvinist. Interesting. Well, there is a lot of similarities, by the way, between hyper-Calvinism and Islam, so I'm not shocked by that. Joining me now is Usama Dakdok and Shahram Hadian. Gentlemen, welcome back to the broadcast. Do any of you disagree with anything I just said? First, you, Hadian, do you disagree with anything I just said?
No, you're absolutely correct. Everything that we went through when we sought to biblically go to our brethren and confront James White, and then further confront those who were building him up, like Phil Johnson and Justin Peters, who were trying to tell us that Islam was not a spiritual threat. So there's no problem, apparently, with having an interfaith dialogue inside a Christian church. But no, absolutely everything you said. And it is ironic, as you said, that there seems to be a symbiotic relationship. And I've always, Brandon, wondered about that and really thought, wow, that is probably the most interesting thing that came out of this, was this idea that these more Calvinistic, Reformed theology Christians, they're saying, we're going to stand with the Muslims. Do you remember when James White said that, right? You know, when persecution comes, we're going to be standing with the Muslims, yet they have no problem persecuting or making false accusations against their own Christian brethren. And I find that to be astonishing, because I think Jesus was very clear that if there's hatred for your brother in this sense, you're worse than an unbeliever. So you're absolutely correct in everything you said. And where are the voices that should be raising up right now? I guarantee you James White's probably excited about this project in Texas, which we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get to it because we've been covering about a year, but now it seems to be getting attention. And now apparently the governor of Texas, it's on his radar finally. Let me go to you real quick, Usama. Do you disagree with anything I said in my monologue setting this up?
You are right on the money. I have said this a few years ago. I have lots of Calvinist friends who I pray that somehow the Lord will work on their heart. But I believe hyper-Calvinists.
And by the way, I just say that I'm talking about hyper-Calvinist, just so I don't confuse people with my other Reformed, mainstream, really, I have some Reformed people like Charles Ryrie and others, that I had no issue with, Tommy Ice, other guys, right? Wow. Dealing with one Usama is quite a bit, but now all of a sudden I had two Usamas. Can you even imagine being blessed with two Usamas? Well, there you go.
Okay, but here's the deal. I said it years ago and I still stick with it, that hyper-Calvinists are not but moderate Muslim believers.
I want to make sure everybody understands what you just said with your beautiful accent. You have said for years that hyper-Calvinism is nothing more than what?
Moderate Muslim believers.
Wow.
They believe in the same God. Because Allah and the God of the hyper-Calvinists is one of the same. And we can talk about that some other time, but we don't have time for today. I believe James White is so happy now because he may be able to get a villa for himself, or maybe just a small house as a gift from Yasser Qadhi. After all, he is the one who helped Yasser Qadhi and the Muslims of America to make them legit, to make them a wonderful American people, and he make me, you, Sharam, the racist people, the Islamophobic people, the terrorist of the Christian church. I remember one time, by the way, some Muslims sent me a video, Brandon, and in that video they were talking about James White speaking about me. And he said that I am not qualified to speak about Islam because I did not know what the word Qadi means. I remember it very well. You asked me, Brandon, how do you pronounce his last name? And I told you, I do not know how to pronounce his last name because there's an H letter, if I remember, or something like that, in the way he is writing his name in the Pakistani language. And I said, he may pronounce his name different than Qadi, whatever, Qadi, Qadahi. If you go back to the video, you see exactly what I said. Now, James White did not say anything about anything we talked about concerning Yasser Qadhi, but he knows exactly that I am not qualified because I do not know even what the word judge means. By the way, there's another word for it, brother James White. It's called hakim. Hakim is a judge. Qadi is a judge. I speak Arabic much better than your Yasser Qadhi speaks Arabic. At least I know that all the foreign words of the Quran, which your Yasser Qadhi thinks are Arabic. No, 279 words in my translation here, where I show that Allah himself does not know Arabic, not just Yasser Qadhi. He's a Pakistani Muslim, does not know jack about the Arabic language. He made me memorize chapters in the Quran. That's why he can pronounce them right. But if I give him a page in the Bible, in the Arabic language, he could not read it right. I'm talking about pronunciation of the words. So anyway,
and by the way, we've invited Yasser Qadhi. We invited Yasser Qadhi many times on the broadcast, and he never would come on. So this is something that's a lot of little introduction here, folks. But just to bring it right to speed, this is a guy we've been tracking since 2017. Actually, we were tracking it before that because we were tracking when the church next door to him, the secret sensitive church next door to him, was in the local press and letting them use their water and parking lot and whatnot. And so excited the mosque was going to be built next door. And yet Yasser Qadhi is, talked about taking the property of the Jew and the Christian in jihad and that the Holocaust, Hitler didn't really do all that. And all this stuff is made up. I mean, you guys can find all this online. But now that brings us full circle. This guy we've been following for years now and warning about, and who's got a great kumbaya, Barney, I love you, you love me relationship with the hyper-Calvinist James White and John MacArthur's Phil Johnson of Grace to You and all of the other guys that run in that pack of who I think is absolute apostasy, false gospel, works-based gospel, and so on and so on. So again, I think you're dipping from the same well there. That's my theological opinion. Now we see that this Yasser Qadhi guy that we've tried to warn about for years is now on the radar of the governor of Texas. But first, look at what he's doing. We reported on this a year ago, but let's get everybody up to speed. Here we go.
Today, we take the next bold step. We are proud to announce the successful purchase of land for Epic City.
402 acres of beautiful scenery. Welcome to the future of living. Welcome to Epic City. Nestled in the heart of Josephine, Texas, it is about 20 miles and 20 minutes from Epic.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Welcome to Epic 2.0. Epic City is more than just a neighborhood. It's a way of life. A meticulously designed community that brings Islam to the forefront.
Oh boy.
A community that blends with nature, crafted to elevate your living experience. With single-family homes, multi-family townhomes and apartments, senior living, and in the heart a mosque and a school.
Oh wow.
Parks for Eid prayer, carnivals and community events. Multiple fields for sports including soccer, cricket, tennis, and volleyball. Epic City, a housing community where we celebrate diversity and promote unity. Our community is designed to foster a sense of belonging and inclusivity for all residents, regardless of their background. We believe that everyone deserves a safe and comfortable place to call home, and we are committed to creating a welcoming environment where all residents can live together in harmony.
The future is in our hands. Together, we've achieved so much.
All right, so there you go. So you think they would let us come by a place there and establish a beachhead for biblical Christianity? Usama?
Well, he said we all live together in harmony, and I'm sorry to tell you that is for the Sunni Muslims. When Muslims speak, you have to ask question, what do you mean all? What is all? What are you really trying to say? They will tell you Sunni Muslims. They will not have even Shiite Muslim there. And we live in harmony. Excuse me, since when Muslims live in harmony anywhere in planet Earth? It's been 1,450 years. I have not seen yet one Muslim community where Muslims live in harmony. So obviously it's a joke, brother. It's a joke.
And this is not going on just in Texas. Here is Minnesota. They unveiled plans to turn Minnesota Lakeside into an enormous Muslim town. This is going on all over the country. Michigan, Minnesota, Texas.
The plan is to create a Muslim cities all over the 50 states of the United States of America. And it's not going to be just one city. It starts with one, and then they have this, what we've been talking about for years and years since I met with you, 17, 18 years ago, no-go zone cities. That is Muslims taking over America. For many reasons, I hope we can cover them in our broadcast today.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I guess the governor, I want to go back to what the governor is saying here. To be clear, look what he said here. To be clear, Sharia law is not allowed in Texas. No Sharia cities, nor are no-go zones, which this project seems to imply. Bottom line, the project is proposed in the video is not allowed in Texas. Well, thank you, Greg Abbott, but they've already sold out the phase 1, Shahram. We have Khadi on video bragging. They've already sold out phase 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck trying to stop this at this point with where they're going, because as you said and you pointed out, Brandon, and Usama just reiterated that this has been the warning that we have been trying to deliver to Americans, to Christians, to the Republican Party, that the transition from the lower house to the upper house, when they can now have the Islamic Call of Prayer in Minneapolis, in New York, and probably soon to be in that Texas city, they are going to be very difficult to stop. They've already sold out. Now, Lino Lakes that you mentioned in Minnesota, the community there, because we brought some attention to the project in Lino Lakes, because we found out that it was actually part of 3 projects. The first one in Lino Lakes in Minnesota, then they were planning one in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and also in Rochester, Minnesota. The community in Lino Lakes finally came out. So right now there's a 1-year moratorium on that. But the Texas one is far bigger. Lino Lakes was 156 acres. The Texas one is 402 acres. It is Lino Lakes was about $500 million. This is well over $1 billion project. So number one question, where is the money coming from?
Bingo.
This money is not coming from me and you putting they're requiring a $30,000 down payment. We need to also discuss Sharia financing, because these people, if they're getting loans from the $500 billion Sharia finance worldwide banking system that gives loans to Muslims without interest. They get loans without interest payments, whereas we don't get that opportunity. So they pay a fee. So they're paying $30,000 up front as their down payment. You think that's funding this 400-acre project? No way. This money is coming from overseas. This money is coming from whether it's the Saudis, the Turks, whether, as Usama said, Pakistan. And I don't know how Greg Abbott, it's nice to put a tweet out, right? It's not nice to put something on X. But how do you fundamentally stop this when they have been so cowardice?
Well, this is a guy, don't forget, Shahram, this is the guy that had Colonial Ridge going, where they were building what is according to Todd Bensman and Michael Yon and others, the biggest enclave and development of illegal immigrants buying houses in Texas called Colonial Ridge. They had to fly over it with a helicopter. Michael Yon and Todd Bensman did. And Greg Abbott did nothing. And this was all over the news for the last several years. I mean, Greg Abbott, I'm not very impressed with him at all. So if he wasn't going to do anything about that, you think he's going to do anything about this beside his little tweet?
Absolutely not. That's what I'm saying. As you said, when phase 1's already sold out, under what grounds are they now going to come and say, we're going to pull the permit? Because and by the way, we also identified another project like this that was in Idaho, that was east of Boise. What the advantage there was that we found out about that project very early on, because they were planning a cemetery. And we said, why are they planning a cemetery for 4,000 plots when the population of Muslims in Boise was maybe around 2,000 at that time? So that triggered us. People started digging into all the city planning and all the permitting that was going on. And at that time, they were doing bit by pieces. We're going to permit for the cemetery, then a school, then a mosque. Now they're so emboldened. I mean, just think about how emboldened are they that they're like, we're not even hiding this. We're going to build an entire Islamic community. Oh, non-Muslims are welcome, but are those non-Muslims going to be then dhimitude? Are we going to have now dhimitude in America, where we're dhimmis, where we're second class, and you can come into the community and live, but understand, this is an Islamic community that is halal, that has been sanctified to the demonic false god Allah. And how do you stop it? Because America has not heeded the warning that this is the agenda of Islam, as Usama said, city by city by city. When CARE passed the prayer ordinance in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, the head of CARE said, this is the blueprint for every city in America. We're going to get the Islamic Call of Prayer broadcast in every city in America. Wake up, America, and once again re-engage this. One final thing. The problem is the church, Brandon. We're here today. What are we talking about? James White, John MacArthur. The problem are the Christians that either don't understand Islam, don't understand the same evil ideology that parades dead bodies in Gaza to dance music is the same ideology that is behind Yasser Qadi. It is the same ideology that is behind the Islamic movement in America. It's the same demonic spirit.
Yeah, 100%. In fact, let me just show you a little bit for those who might doubt. This is a TV show we did on. Watch this. See ahead maybe a little bit.
And I think tonight.
Look at that. Well, let me watch a whole minute of my own program because I'm not logged into the vault. Oh well. I need to log into the vault, and then I could have showed you that from 2017. But we've got Yasser Qadi, or James White, on video saying that he learned Islam from Yasser Qadi, and he was his mentor. I wonder if they're going to open the James White, maybe they can open the James White Phil Johnson Center there, and because, in my opinion, James White and Phil Johnson have really helped to advance this cause. Is that
Sure.
fair to say? Is that a fair statement to say that evangelicals have helped to advance a guy like Yasser Qadi we were warning about years ago?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Brandon. I want to just hit a few points here, if you don't mind, quickly. Yes, it is illegal to build a project in Texas, but they are twisting the rules. They're using the deception of Islam. The deception of Allah is the best deceiver, and they say that it's investment. Maybe under investment, they can find a way to get into it. By the way, Muslims are professional liars. From my previous experience, if he said that the first project, which part A, the 1,000 people already finished, already sold it, that could be a big lie because that's how Muslims do business.
In fact, let me show you that clip just so people don't doubt that he's really said that.
Sure.
Here it is.
Sure.
Let's listen to this guy. Here's Yasser.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, I'm sure many of you have heard of the amazing project that we're doing known as Epic Cities. We are, alhamdulillah, constructing an entire city half an hour from downtown Dallas, literally 30 minutes from our own Plano Masjid over here. It's going to be a city of over 1,000 people. Alhamdulillah, we launched this website last year and we sold the entire phase 1 within days. Because of the demand, we are now opening up Epic Ranches. Epic Ranches is an exclusive opportunity for those who want to be within minutes of Epic City, but also want larger plots. We have 2 Epic Ranches. Epic Ranches 1 begins with 1 acreage and goes up to 5 acreage. And Epic Ranches 2 has plots of half acre and also investment opportunities for those who want to build condominiums. Brothers and sisters, this is a limited time.
Wait a minute. They got pools. Are that pools? They're going to have the chicks out there, the Muslim chicks in their bikinis out there in the pools, or what's the deal? I don't think I'd want to see that, by the way.
Brother Brandon, this is special ladies' days and men days, and the ladies will be wearing the full burqa. But here's the fact.
Well, let me ask you this. He says, Alhamdulillah. He loves to say, Alhamdulillah, all the time. What does that mean?
Alhamdulillah means the praise be to Allah. We finished, we already sold the first 1,000 lot. Brandon, that could be a very 100% lie because the same Allah whom he's praising is the one who taught him it's okay to lie. You can lie to your wife, you can lie to your enemy, you can lie to your friends. And as I was telling earlier before you played that video, in Islam, one of the deception, if you want to do a project, say for a 4,000 house, and you say, here's our first half, it is 2,000, and you only sold maybe half of it or a quarter of it, you say, it's already sold. We have to move to the second phase, and we have to move to the third phase to draw people to buy. But it doesn't really mean anything to us. It doesn't matter. They are professional liars. I believe, even if they open it to the American public, listen to this. I hope this is recorded for good so people can watch it and underline what I'm saying. Even if they allow Christians and Jews and atheists and gay and lesbian to have their clubs there and move on there, building houses, it will be like Detroit. It will be like Dearborn, where right now you can buy your house will cost you $100,000. Tomorrow we'll buy it from you for less than $20,000. I'm not kidding you, Brandon. Just mark my word. Remember that. If they allow non-Muslim to live with them there, it will be like we have seen today in California. The Muslim Arab boys beating the daylight out of a Jewish boy, or out of a Christian boy, or out of a gay or a lesbian lady. They will do that to threaten their lives. Then they have to run out for their life, and they're going to leave their beautiful homes for literally a quarter or half of the price. So it doesn't matter really. It's all deception. But so far it is Sunni Muslim, and it's so far for the purpose of da'wah. That is to invite the neighbors to become Muslim. Maybe if somebody convert to Islam, they will welcome them there.
Yeah. And I finally, yeah, go ahead, Sharon.
Sure, I was going to say, I just wanted to respond to your question about, I think the crux of the question, what you're talking about, did the likes of James White, the likes of those Christians, are they facilitating this type of takeover? Because we should, I think we're all agree on the program, as Usama already said. This is an enclave. So, but what they're doing differently than they've done in Western Europe is they're not even hiding anymore. So that they've put lipstick on a pig, and now it's a beautiful enclave rather than the violent, sadistic no-go zones that we see in European cities that are rape cultures. And as Usama said, they take those areas over. They destroy property values, and then they force the unbelievers out by buying them out, which is what he described in not only Dearborn, remember, but Hamtramck, which is just next to Dearborn, which is now the first Muslim majority city and controlled by by Muslims and the city council mayor. But did Christians facilitate? Absolutely. Here's the best litmus test. Usama, how many churches are knocking down at your door to have you come or me come and speak on Islam and this warning that we've given? Are you getting invitations every day? Is your schedule full?
It was like that in my dreams before I started that ministry 20 years ago. And it's still in my dream. Once in a while, I dream some preacher call me and ask me to go to speak in his church. But for every 150 churches we call, and these are conservative churches. I'm not talking about some Catholic church or some whatever other church you think. I'm talking about for every 150 church, we get one. If we got the second one, it's a miracle. This many churches will not have me because they know what I'll be talking about. So there is no point to shake the boat and make some people in their congregation uncomfortable.
Well, wait a minute. After October 7th and Hamas, your speaking engagements didn't increase?
Not really.
Worse.
Even though Muslim Brotherhood is the one who gave birth to Hamas in 1987, and they're all over the country and own about 90% of the mosque, according to David Gobbets, who went undercover, about 425 of them, former federal agent. He says they own about 90% of them, Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood. And after October 7th, Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood attacking Israel, your speaking engagements did not increase for Christians in America saying, I want to understand this worldview of Islam. That didn't happen, Usama?
Not yet, and I don't think it will ever happen. I think the church in America is like that frog in a very warm water, so relaxed, it's about to be boiled. I'm talking about the church in America.
Mm-hmm. And we've been on this for 8 years, well, more than 8 years. Okay, we've all been on this more than 8 years. But specifically, James White and Yasser Qadhi. I was talking about Yasser Qadhi before this because his mosque was a couple miles down the road before he moved to Plano. Okay, but we have specifically been on this topic for 8 years when James White came to our town and did this interfaith dialogue with this guy who is now going to Plano, and now he's got the attention of the governor. I don't know anything will happen. And yet, where's the church in America on this? I mean, good luck to the churches and the sleepy churches in Plano, Texas. In my opinion, you're getting what you deserve. And I hate to sound callous, but I have told you guys privately, I'm going to laugh my fanny off when some of these people finally wake up and realize who have been, they're too radical. House and Usama and Hadian are too radical. They're too extreme. They're conspiracy theorists. They're making this up. I'm not sure Usama is even really knows Arabic or was from Egypt. I think that Hadian is probably a fake Muslim. This is what the, quote, evangelicals have said. True or false, Hadian?
No, absolutely. That it is our biggest obstacle, our biggest opponents, as Usama said, have come from within the church. And as you said, you think that after October 7th, doors would have opened to say, you know what, maybe we should understand as Christians where this ideology comes from, what is behind. Of course, we know it's spiritual. We know it's a spiritual deception, but it's gone the opposite way, where not only do those churches not want to know about Islam, they don't even want to know about Israel because they're confused about Israel because, according to my estimation and polls that studies that I've seen, maybe close to 3/4 of the American church is now in some sort of a replacement theology camp. So, Brandon, they will one day wake up, because I guarantee you most of the churches probably in East Plano are already embracing, because they did nothing to resist the East Plano Islamic Center, right? That's what the EPIC is for. They call it EPIC and EPIC Ranch. It's for the East Plano Islamic Center that Yasser Qadhi. And what about Russell Moore, Brandon, when Russell Moore said that we're going to help Muslims build their mosque, because if they can't build their mosque, we can't build our churches. Remember that? Remember
that dealt with the mosque. They were massive mosques they were building in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, outside of Nashville, and that's exactly what he said. And I just had a guy in our studio from Murfreesboro, Tennessee on Sunday recording with JJ, and I said, how's that big mosque going for you? And by the way, compliments of the Southern Baptist Convention, who helped build it and said, if you don't build the mosque, we won't be able to build churches. And I'm like, I'm sorry. In our churches, we don't teach people to go out and overthrow the Constitutional Republic of America. We don't teach about abusing women or sex slaves or modeling the prophet and taking a bride at 6 and consummating it at 9, as Muhammad did with Aisha. Killing the Jew, killing the Christian.
Apostates.
Yes, killing apostates. So I said, nor are our churches armories to store up weaponry by which to, again, to overthrow the Constitutional Republic and make an Islamic nation and culture and laws. So, no, Russell Moore, there's a huge difference between churches and mosques. But you're right. The Southern Baptist Convention helped build that. But are we shocked when the Southern Baptist Convention, you can't swing a dead cat in the South without hitting a member of the Masons, which at the highest level, you have Shriners. Not all Masons are Shriners, but all Shriners are Masons. And at the top level, they wear their little red fez with the crescent moon and sword of Islam. And that represents the Christians' blood, as the Islamists dip their fezes in the blood of the martyred Christians and put them back on their head. And yet, what happened? Southern Baptist Convention is full of these Masons and Shriners. And in 1993, the Masons flooded the Southern Baptist Convention and voted down a resolution brought by some decent biblical-based pastors who I knew to say, look, Freemasonry is not something we as churches should be involved in. Our pastors, our deacons should not. The Masons flooded that, sent their people there to be the messengers to vote. They voted that resolution down, passed a resolution saying aspects of Freemasonry are consistent with Christianity. That's when God gave over, I believe, the Southern Baptist Convention to Satan. And now they're helping build churches for Satan known as mosques, because again, Christians and Muslims are worshiping Satan. As Usama's taught us, the description of Satan in the Bible and the description of Allah in the Quran are the same. And yet I also believe for the hyper-Calvinists that have united with James White and the Islamists, I think they may also worship the same God, because the God of John Calvin and the God described by John Calvin and these guys is anti-Semitic. It is a works-based gospel. It is a very evil God of the hyper-Calvinist that sounds more like Allah. So at the end of the day, just as the Southern Baptist Shriner puts on his little fez with the crescent moon and sword, and he literally at the higher level swears an oath to Allah. Go look this up, folks. That's Satan. Would you be shocked at some of the hyper-Calvinists who love this interfaith dialogue at the end of the day may also be serving Satan, which is who the Muslims are worshiping? They call Allah. Agree or disagree, Usama?
You are 100% right, Brennan. It's unbelievable. As I believe Hosea 4:6, that verse come life every day in my life as I've been living in this country for at least the last 20 years or so. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. I guarantee you, if you go speak in any of these Baptist church and teach what you just said, they will say, A, you're a liar, you're just making stuff up, or B, we are just stupid, we do not know what you're talking about. And Brandon, I need to catch our attention to something very important about why it is dangerous for these communities to ever exist in America. I'm going to give you a living example, something we have lived in this country in Texas, not anywhere else. There is something we call in America, something we brag about. We talk about melting pot, or the where we assimilate. No, let us also said it very clearly. We will not assimilate with the American. Melting pot does not fit with Islamic ideologies. They are here for one reason. As even Sharifa Mukhtar said, Dr. Sharifa Mukhtar is a famous lady. She's actually the one who set the blueprint for education for Muslims to take over our textbook in America. And boy, she did a good number. She said, we are Muslim first, we are Muslim last. We will never be Americans. Now, if you bring the Muslims in this community where they have their grocery store, they have their mosque, they have their sport places, and they have their hospital, and they have their doctors, and they have everything they need. They are separating themselves from the community. That will lead to what? It is a living example I want to share with you. Remember a man by the name Muhammad, he's from Egypt? He actually shot and killed his two beautiful daughters as we heard the sound bite on the 911 call. She said, my daddy shot me. My daddy shot my sister. Oh, and then one more bullet, and we never heard any more from her. That Muhammad, the Egyptian driver, taxi driver, killed his two daughters, 17 and 18, if I remember the dates, their ages right. And then it was near the airport, so I figured out the man have another counterfeit passport. He jumped an airplane back to Egypt. And we waited. A few years later, I think 7 or 8 years later, oh, somebody found him. Where? In Texas. Where? Where he used to live. And now he's arrested. And they arrested a couple, 3 other people with him. But listen to me, Brennan. Listen to me, my dear friends, very good. That man was not hiding in some place. That man was in the mosque. That man was in the Muslim community. He is living. His family know where he's at. His friends know where he's at. Nobody will ever give him up. Why? Because he did what is honorable. He killed his two daughters according to Sharia, Islamic law. And that is what will be practiced in this community. So trust me, in the near future, if this community ever exists in America, it will be the no-go zone, which means they will be practicing for Sharia, and there is nothing you or I or FBI or CIA or any authority in this land will do to stop them from killing even their own children, for heaven's sake, if they cross the line of Sharia or Islamic law. And that is why I am 100% against it. I'm against having Muslim in America, period, because they are dangerous for us. But if you put them together, when they have the upper hand, when they are large in number, you'll be surprised. There will be riots coming out of the city for burning churches and everything else you can imagine in this land.
And in fact, here is the newscast, just to, this is in Texas. So what he's saying is you build these compounds, you base it on Sharia, and you're going to see them, oh yeah, the man kills his two daughters, and yet he was hiding right there for 7 years. The Muslims didn't want to turn him over because according to what he did was legit and legal under Sharia, honor killing. Watch this.
A former fugitive on the FBI's top 10 list is on trial for the murders of his two teenage daughters. Police say Yasser Syed shot his teenage daughters, Amina and Sarah, outside an Irving hotel in 2008. He went into hiding for 12 years until detectives tracked him down in August 2020 at a home in Denton County. Fox 4's Alex Boyer joins us now.
Yeah, Denton County, 12 years on the run right there. And who do you think was 12 years?
I saw 7 or 8 years, so obviously I was wrong. Yes, 12 long years, Brandon.
And by the way, you mentioned the education lady that wanted to change our textbooks, said we would never assimilate. This is from the trailer of my documentary, Sabotage, that came out in November of 2018. Watch just a little bit of this, because the lady you're about to see, he just made reference to.
And in that long-range process of making America Muslim, all of America Muslim, then we have to have some actual short-range goals. We do not want to melt into American society and disappear. We want to go into American society with Islamic ideals and revamp their thinking. We want to revamp them. We want to turn them into Muslim individuals.
That we, when we stand up to those who oppress our communities, that Allah accepts from us that as a form of jihad, that we are struggling against tyrants and rulers, not only abroad, store on the other side of the world, but here in these United States of America, where you have fascists and white supremacists and Islamophobes reigning in the White House.
We have to help those people in their causes because their causes are our causes. Black Lives Matter is our matter. Black Lives Matter is our campaign.
Let's recognize that we are the community that staged a revolution across the world. If we could do that, why can't we have that revolution in America?
So what are the goals of the Muslim Brotherhood according to their own 1991 document found in 2004 and entered into evidence as part of the federal trial against the Holy Land Foundation? Here is what their own document says. The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Muslim Brotherhood must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers.
We can't just do rallies. We have to fight back. There will be casualties on both sides. There will be, because people have to die to make a change in this world. But Trump, enough with your racism. Stop splitting families.
For me, capitalism is like...
Oh, we'll stop it right there. So that's the trailer for my documentary, Sabotage, which, by the way, if you're a member of the Vault, you can watch the whole 6 hours for free, worldviewtube.com/vault. 1989 should say we're going to change the textbooks. We're not going to assimilate. We're here to turn you into Muslims. And voila, 402 acres popping up in Texas by Yasser Qadi, who we tried to warn America. We tried to warn the church. And John MacArthur's Grace to You, Phil Johnson, executive director, along with some of the other people of that organization, went on the attack on social media, blogs, lying about us, making up things, even attacking my wife, doxing my home, where I go to church. And then after they ran us out of our church because we didn't want to put people at risk because we'd had and they knew it, we had a guy from Saudi Arabia come in with guns. And he had in the parking lot later with his video he made on Facebook, 5 weapons, 2 semi-automatics, and 1,200 rounds, and threatened us. He did threaten Sharam and I did 7 months. They knew all that. And yet they still doxed my home and where I went to church. And then they wanted to say, where does Brendan House go to church? Brendan House doesn't go to church. Brendan House doesn't go to church. Well, you morons, I had to leave the church because you outed where I went to church, and I'm not sitting at the back door with my back after we just had a gunman at our conference or putting these people at risk. And when we contacted John MacArthur, we contacted the elders, we got a letter from Grace Church on letterhead saying, don't contact us again. Folks, I've told you again and again, the quote, pastors of America, and put that in quotes, the so-called churches in America will aid Satan in the destruction of the church in America, the real church, and the targeting of real Christians. That's why I wrote the book, Marxianity, in 2018. That's why I wrote the book, Religious Trojan Horse, in 2011. That's why I wrote the book, The Coming Religious Reich, in 2016. I've been warning you that a false church was rising. And here it is. They've partnered up, partners with the Muslim Interfaith Dialogue Yasser Qadi. Quick comment from you, Sharam.
Well, Brandon, you're absolutely correct. That's exactly what is now coming to fruition. What we sow, we reap. And what they are sowing, meaning they that are professing Christians, professing churches, and Christian leaders, is sowing a partnership. And this goes back before that even, Brandon, when we warned about the Common Word document in 2006 that the likes of Rick Warren and Bill Hybels and others signed, National Association of Evangelicals, Fuller Theological Seminary, all these Christians that have partnered, they are partnering with an Antichrist spirit. And to Usama's point, I agree with you. I think that any Muslim that swears allegiance to Allah shouldn't be allowed in America. But practically, that's not going to happen. So practically, what should we be doing? Practically, the churches of America, the true believers, should be inviting people like Usama and I and other former Muslims or Christians and other experts on Islam to teach. Here is what Islam is, and if you don't go on the offensive with the gospel of Jesus Christ, if you don't stop playing these interfaith, multi-faith games and common word games and saying that Islam is an Abrahamic faith and we all ultimately worship the God of Abraham, if you don't stop with these lies from the pit of hell that do nothing but devoid the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ, then America will be taken over, and you'll see more and more and more of these enclaves, and the Christians will help them build it until the Christians will themselves become subjugated, killed. That's what we're seeing in Western Europe. Look at Germany right now. Look at Germany. Every single day, Germans are being killed by Muslims. And who is going to prison? The ones who were warning Germany about Islam.
And we just had in the Republic of Congo, 70 Christians beheaded and killed by the Islamists. That's coming to America. Let me show you a clip, again, just to refresh everybody's memory. This is James White, who came to my backyard right here in the Mid-South and did this interfaith dialogue in June of 2017 that we started warning about with the very videos of this hour and a half or whatever it was inside a church. And you would think, we thought, oh, wow, we won't be attacked by the Christians. It'll be the Muslims. No, it was John MacArthur's buddies that came after us, his people. Watch this.
And researching him for a long time, some of them have even talked to him, and they have provided us with lots of research. Too much to get to in this program. But here's a short, quick article from frontpagemag.com. Muslim who, quote, apologized, end quote, for cursing Jews featured at terror-linked banquet. The article by Joe Kaufman. On the night of, and this, by the way, is 2016 article, last year. On the night of Saturday, February 6th, Qadi will be a featured speaker at the annual banquet sponsored by the ICNA. That's the Islamic Circle of North America. Folks, you ought to just look up the Islamic Circle of North America. He's going to be speaking at this banquet by ICNA Relief at the Fort Lauderdale Marriott Coral Springs Hotel Golf Club and Convention Center. The event is titled Making America Great Again, a cynical hijacking of Donald Trump's Make America Great Again slogan. This is Qadi's second such appearance in Florida in the last 3 months. In November, he was a featured speaker at a Tampa banquet sponsored by the Council on American Islamic Relations. That's CARE, a group that has numerous associations with Hamas, including financial dealings, and a group that was named a terrorist organization by the government of the United Arab Emirates. The ICNA Relief is a function of the Islamic Circle of North America, the American affiliate of South Asian Islamist group Jamaat al-Islami. I'm sure I'm not getting these names correctly. JI's militant wing, Hizbul Mujahideen, owned the Pakistani compound where Osama bin Laden was killed. ICNA has been linked to terrorist financing and has used the web to promote different terrorist groups, including Hamas, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, and the Taliban. ICNA conducts annual functions along with Muslim American Society, which, like CARE, is a United Arab Emirates designated terrorist organization. In August 2006, ICNA Relief was the top donor and partner to Pakistani charity Al-Qanamat Foundation. At the same time, this organization, acronym AKF, took a delegation to Damascus, Syria, to hand-deliver nearly $100,000 to Hamas global leader Khalid Masalal at his residence. Masalal thanked the group and said Hamas would continue to wage, quote, jihad, end quote, that means war, on, quote, Zionist, end quote, actually on the, quote, Zionist yoke, end quote, meaning obviously I think Israel. ICNA Relief continues to work directly with AKF overseas. Joe Kaufman concludes, Yasser Qadi's speech against Jews didn't happen in a vacuum. He has previously defended high-profile terrorists such as Ali al-Tamimi. Folks, you ought to look up who Ali al-Tamimi is, who received a life sentence for his role as the spiritual leader of a Virginia jihad group planning attacks against U.S. troops, and Afia Siddiqua, an al-Qaeda operative who was convicted of attempting to murder a U.S. Army chaplain in Afghanistan. In addition, Qadi has threatened the wrath of God upon world leaders. Now, does that sound like someone you can have common ground with? Does that sound like someone that you should be a kindred spirit with? Does that sound like someone who should be a primary influence on Islam to you? Is that someone that should mentor you in parts of Islam, as you'll hear James White admits, you've been my mentor in this area? Do you think James White has done his homework on Yasser Qadi? But instead of dealing with the facts, my friends, you know what James has done? Exactly what we predicted We predicted before his radio show went on the air, it would be a lot of smoke. He'll throw a lot of sand in the air, but not address the facts. Because you can't. You can't refute what national security experts, former military security experts, former police detectives, former police officers, former FBI agents have given to us on Yasser Qadhi and written publicly that are all over the internet for anyone to find. What is wrong with James White? But see, James White simply needs to come out and say, I was wrong. I've been duped. I didn't realize who this guy was. No, he's not going to the left. No, he's not a moderate. No.
And of course, James White's never going to do that. And so there's that long litany of what it is that Yasser Qadhi was up to. And anyone can find these things. And as I was just saying there in that presentation, we showed people this information, and it was coming from, as I said, military people. Retired military people. It was coming from former FBI guys that tracked him in, and when they told us, well, they were in the agency. Listen to what James White then says about this guy now that we've detailed his background.
Was so kind to respond and to join with us in providing a place for us to have our conversation this evening. I want you to understand what our motivations are this evening in coming together. This is not a debate. Some of you have seen debates that I have done around the world. This is not intended to be a debate. We are going to, of necessity, discuss differences that we have. The thing that makes this wonderful, and the reason that I sought out Dr. Qadhi, aside from the fact that I have learned so much from him over the years, that he's been a primary influence in my study of Islam. I am a student of Islam, and I've learned much from him. But the reason I specifically sought him out is because I sense in him such a kindred spirit on the other side of the chasm that divides us in regards to our theology and our beliefs. He is a consistent Muslim. He believes what he says. He wants to seek for consistency amongst his people and his own practice. And so when you have two believing people, one Christian, one Muslim, come together and say, we need to discuss not only what divides us, but also where do we have similarities? How can we live in the same community? And the most important thing is this. If we do what I hope happens this evening, we're going to do something absolutely unique. It hardly ever happens. And that is two communities where unfortunately there is a lot of fear on both sides. There is a lot of misunderstanding on both sides. And as a Christian, I want to see doors opened. As a Christian, I want you, as if you are a Christian here this evening, to not have fear of the Muslim people, but to have love for the Muslim people. I want the Muslim people to understand that we care and that we want to have dialogue, and that we're not seeking this evening to sweep our differences under the rug and say they don't matter. Dr. Qadhi cannot present an Islam that is just simply one view amongst many. I believe in divine revelation. He believes in divine revelation. So how do we get along? How do our communities talk to one another? The sad fact of the matter is that conversation isn't happening.
Yeah, well, two believers, by the way, both believing in divine revelation. Wow. And by the way, how did that work out, sadly, for the Jews in the kibbutz on the line of Gaza? They sought to do everything James White says he was trying to do. Find common ground, work together, be kind to each other, work together. They opened the door, the gate, for the Muslims to come over onto their kibbutz, gave them jobs, paid them, were engaged in interfaith dialogue, were known in Israel for being, some of them very liberal Jews, that were doing the social justice interfaith dialogue. And did the Muslims say, thank you, you are our friend, we will pass over you guys and go to kill the other Jews, not you, because you're our friends? No, that's who they attacked. They knew they were attacking the kibbutz of people that were trying to have interfaith dialogue with them and were giving them jobs and trying to say, oh, they're nice, we can all get along, we have a two-state solution, we can kumbaya. James White is the very biblical definition, I believe, of a fool. Usama?
Yeah. Well, I love the one sentence Dr. James White said, the differences between us make us wonderful. And I wonder if you have any idea about what is the difference between a Muslim and a Christian. And I'm going to get to the common word in a minute, which Brother Sharon mentioned in a minute. He said there's fear in both sides. There is misunderstanding in both sides. I never heard of a Muslim is afraid to live in America, even to kill himself, to kill a Muslim, to kill a non-Muslim, a Jew or a Christian. So this is just garbage, nonsensical material. Words come out of his mouth. I feel like I was reading the Quran. But let me share with you the common word propaganda where we can get together and we will be fine. Quran chapter 3 and verse 64. And I read from my own translation here. It says, Quran chapter 3 verse 64, say, O people of the book, that is the letter which was sent to Rick Warren and the other 130 some wacko evangelical who sign in, please help me in. I believe 6 or 5 retrieved. They took their signature out, but the rest of them are still in it. Listen to the word of Allah. Say, O people of the book, come to an equal word or a common word between us and you, that we serve only Allah, none partner anything, nor partner anything with him, nor take each other as Lord rather than Allah. It's very simple. The common word, which maybe that's what Dr. James White is looking for, and Rick Warren and others, it is for us as the Muslim to become one, to be together. We worship Allah alone. We will never have Jesus Christ to be partner with Allah. Because face it, Brandon, face it, my dear friends, for Christians to say they're Christians, they will never be part of that union which Rick Warren and James White and others want, because we are by nature, by our belief, a bunch of infidels. We worship Jesus Christ as God. We believe him to be one of the 3 heads of God, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And the Quran is very clear. Quran chapter 5 verse 72, infidel indeed are those who said Allah is the Christ, son of Mary. That's what we are. Quran chapter 5 verse 73 is very clear. It is Allah's word said, infidel indeed are those who said Allah is the third of 3. So what is a common word? It is forget about Christianity. We'll never partner Jesus with God. We only worship Allah alone, and we will hold hand with our dear Muslim friends, if it is Yasser Qadi or whoever else, and we'll sing the Kumbaya song until when Muslim has the upper hand in America. Then they practice one more verse. That is Quran chapter 47 verse 4, where Allah said, when you meet those who became infidels, strike the necks. That is to be hit. Strike the necks until you have made a great slaughter. It is very easy. I know the differences between Islam and Christianity, but I wonder if Dr. James White bothered to investigate what is the difference between us. How can this make us wonderful? Yes, it will make some people victims, that is the Christians, to be slaughtered by the hand of the Muslims. That is a common we can have with Muslims. We continue to be Christians and they continue to slaughter us. What a great difference between us. Wow. Make us really in one unity.
And of course, you know all about that because your daddy had his churches burned to the ground by Muslim Brotherhood / Hamas, and you know of lots and lots of Christians in Egypt that would not convert to Islam.
Mentioned, Brandon, you mentioned yourself, we got 70 people beheaded last week. I mean, how many of these we share every day to wake up the church in America? I don't know.
Yep. The Republic of Congo, 70 people beheaded. Yeah. And he knows of people that were brought out by Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt with their wife and daughter, these men, and they were told, you say the Shahada and convert to Islam, or we're gonna rape your daughters and your wife. And they raped them in front of them, and they raped them, and then they still wouldn't say the Shahada, so they beheaded their wife and daughters right in front of them.
They beheaded the husband in front of the wife and the daughters, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wow. Hadian, Sharam, closing comment, but I want to make a statement. Not only do I think that these guys, the hyper-Calvinists, have a messed up theology that I think aligns more with Allah than the God of the Bible, but I think many of them are into replacement theology, which is anti-Semitism, and their eschatology is so messed up. I think one reason these people can unite naturally and spiritually with people like Yasser Qadi is not only because do I think they probably serve the same God, in my opinion, but they seem to, a lot of them have the same opinion about, not all of them, but some of them would call themselves dispensationalists, but That's in word, not in practice and theory from what's happening to a lot of their churches and seminaries. But many of them are openly hostile to dispensationalism, hostile to Zionists, and mock what we believe. So they would be in agreement with Yasser Qadhi and many of the Muslims when it comes to their view about the Jews and that God really has no plan for them or use for them. True or false, Shahram?
No, it's absolutely true. And I would say, you know this, even John MacArthur acknowledged. I was actually in South Dakota this past weekend speaking to a pastor. We were talking about this, that John MacArthur admitted that he deceived his congregation for years because he used to be dispensational, but ultimately moved away from it, acknowledging that he knew that his mind had changed, but he had to do it incrementally so that he doesn't, lose his congregation. And
that's when he went to starting to call himself a leaky dispensationalist.
That's right, a leaky dispensationalist, exactly. And here's the irony of what you're of what you just exactly described. The irony is that in Islam is dispensational. So maybe that's a shocking statement. Islam is dispensational because Islam believes that Jesus is going to come back as a prophet and directly deal with the pigs, the Jews. So he's going to break the cross. Christianity was wrong, and he's going to kill the Jews. So the focus of the return of Jesus, according to Islam and their Messiah, is to deal with the Jews. Number two, Islam teaches that their Messiah will come for a 7-year period. He will sign a 7-year covenant with the many, with the Romans, who they believe to be the Christians, with the Jews. So Islam is dispensational. That's the irony of this entire discussion, that the hyper-Calvinists, which in my opinion, Brandon, I had not listened to that footage for a while of the so-called interfaith dialogue until I was sitting there listening as you were playing it. And I feel that in my spirit, I'm sitting there going, these people don't have the Holy Spirit. James White, in my opinion, doesn't have the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit would have never sat in that environment and allowed a deceptive Muslim to lie about the very deity and identity of the one that he has come to point. Right? Holy Spirit's come to point to the Christ, to Jesus as the Christ. So I'm convinced these people do not have the Holy Spirit in them. I'm convinced that their gospel is a false gospel. And I will end with this. 1 Timothy chapter 4. The Apostle Paul said in verse 1 and 2, but the Spirit explicitly says that in the latter times, some will fall away from the faith, paying attention to deceitful spirits and doctrines of demons, by means of their hypocrisy of liars seared in their own conscience as with a branding iron. The more they go down the road, the more evangelicals, the more the hyper-Calvinists, Reform, whoever it is, Brandon, in the supposed body of Christ, the more they go down this road of holding hands with an antichrist spirit that is Islam, signing the common word document, agreeing that we have so much in common, agreeing that we can learn so much from each other, agreeing that we can live in peace and harmony together, the more their conscience are being seared because they're paying attention to deceitful, lying spirits, and they're paying attention to demons. That's why I believe there's not the evidence of the Holy Spirit there.
Amen. Amen. I mean, you'll know them by their fruits, right? You'll know them by their fruits. Look at this. This is how we're going to wrap it up, full circle. How did this all come about? Because they're building, and they've already sold out phase 1, reportedly, an Islamic compound, 402 acres. They're going to go even bigger with Yasser Qadhi. And the churches of America, they were, I believe, by the very people that Usama and Shahram and I have been warning about, have played the card for the Islamists, so that when people like us speak up and try to warn America, you'll find plenty to say that we are Islamophobes, we're fake, we're not, that we don't care about the Muslim. Hey, we're involved in evangelism. This is not evangelism, what James White was doing. That's not evangelism at all. That's a clear violation of 2 Corinthians 6, 14 through 17. And so, again, I will say now, the people we warned about in the ministries, so-called, and churches and evangelical leaders, we warned you then. We warned you then that when America sees massive terrorist attacks, when America sees Islamists taking over, you can blame the Christians who criticize those who are trying to be the watchmen. Because it's one thing for the Muslims to criticize us. That doesn't carry a lot of weight. But when the evangelical so-called and Christians criticize us, that's what confuses people. They're like, wait a minute, if that trusted ministry of John MacArthur has Phil Johnson and others criticizing House and Haiti and Dactup, well, then there must be something true to this. So Satan has powerfully used these people, I believe, beyond what they ever could imagine. And now we're starting to see Minnesota, Michigan, Texas, and now we've had, of course, October 7th. And God forbid that happens in America. And when it does, and I'm afraid it will, you can again blame some of these, I believe, same people for discounting the warning and the watchmen that have said, Americans, look up, look out. This is a danger, a Trojan horse. This will be on their hands. And I think for many of them, God will judge them very severely. Closing comment, Usama.
It's very simple. They are trying to unite the Muslims in these cities, whatever you want to call it, and it is to separate them from the church. And I believe that is the most important reason why they don't want to melt in the melting pot of America, because they have seen lots of Muslims in America are leaving Islam. Some of them, majority of them actually becoming atheists or agnostics. Few of them are becoming a Christian. And if you can bring the Muslim family together in these communities where it is not going to have any influence of the people, the outsider, then we can save Islam and save the Muslims. I believe it's time for the Christian America to be educated about Islam, not only to protect themselves from that savage cult, but even to learn how to share the gospel with the Muslims. The Lord Jesus Christ gave us one command. Yes, we want him Savior, but we don't want him as Lord. No, you cannot have him as a Savior unless he is also the Lord of your life. For the church in America, for the Christian America, we are commanded to go to Saudi Arabia. We're commanded to go to Pakistan, where Imam Yasir Qadi came from, to share the gospel with the lost Muslim people there. And they're here. They're everywhere around us. We don't have to put our life in danger to go to the Muslim world. The Lord brought them here. We need to learn about what they believe and why it is dangerous and why it is illegal for Muslims even to live in America according to their Sharia, according to the law. But more important than that, we need to share the love of Christ with them. We need to lead them to Christ before they will be put together in these communities where we will not. I promise you, a Christian family or a Christian couple from whatever church will go to this community to knock at these doors, to share the gospel with those people. You're dead. Think about, you go to Saudi Arabia and knock at some Muslim doors and say, Jesus loves you, and he died on the cross for your sin, and Muhammad is not a prophet. You're dead. That would be in America. So we still have few hours, daylight, as Jesus taught us, to work. Darkness is, I believe it is coming, where the Muslim will have the upper hand, even here in America, not only to practice Islam, but to separate their people from the light of the gospel, which cannot only be known to them except through the believers. So let us get excited about knowing the truth about Islam, taking the gospel and the good news of the gospel to the lost Muslims and lead them to Christ before they hide in these caves or in these communities, which they're going to build one way or another.
Indeed, indeed. TheStraightWay.org, TheStraightWay.org, and Sharon's website is TIL Ministry. What is it? What is it, Sharon?
TILministry.com.
Okay, TIL Ministry stands for Truth and Love. TILministry.com, TILministry.com. Gentlemen, thank you to both of you.
Thank you,
Brandon.
Again, folks, another long format interview. Many groups have interrupted that a gazillion times with commercials. Not only that, show me one conservative network you know would even do what we just did. Most of them are chicken, they're yellow, they're scared to death, they don't have enough knowledge, and even if they did, they wouldn't say and do what we just did because they have no guts, okay? You have to understand, there's a lot of Hollywood and there's a lot of acting in the conservative broadcasting world. And you know what? You know who are the truth tellers and the real people by what they will talk about and what they won't talk about. And I dare you to find a conservative network beyond maybe one or two that would do what we just did. They won't do it, folks. Okay? Now, if that's the kind of organizations you want to watch and you want to support, go for it. But I'm telling you, actions speak louder than words. They can claim all day long they're conservative, they're this, they're that, they're MAGA. But if you want to make America great again, you better deal with the Trojan horse. And that's what we just dealt with. So again, if you appreciate what we're doing, we need your support. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Make sure you also go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. We put in all of our sponsors here so you can quickly find them and know how you can support us while also getting some great products at the same time. It's vital we have your support through our foundation and our sponsors, or we can't do long format interviews like we just did. We will have to take some of these companies up on their offer to start selling ads for us to sell pickup trucks and cruises and all this other stuff. So folks, we need your support. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. These companies don't just hand us money. You do business with them, then they give us a small percentage of payment for each purchase that you make. So again, it takes many, many ways to bring in the revenue to fund this network and keep it going out free of charge with our 24/7 stream, and then putting these interviews back up online the next day for you to watch on demand and share with friends. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Thank you so much for your support by visiting and telling your family and friends about worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Joining me now is our reporter on the ground in Israel, Aaron Lavarco, brought to you by our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com, and my friend of, about 30 years now, Dr. Rob Lindstedt, Christian School Administrator of Sunrise Christian Academy in Wichita, Kansas, and he is the Executive Director of BibleTipNow.org, Bible Truth in Prophecy, BibleTipNow.org. His show is heard each and every day right here on worldviewtube.com. Gentlemen, welcome to Brandon House Live. Thanks for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Brandon. Pleasure to be with you.
Aaron is on the ground in Israel, literally standing on cold ground. So if he dances around a little bit, you'll know why. It's a very damp, freezing temperature right now in Israel. He's up on near Mount Hermon, I think. And you've even had snow in Israel, have you not?
We have. It's been a cold winter. Yep, it's cold up here.
Well, we have big news tonight. I want to go right away to this Pope right here, or this Cardinal right here. I'm not sure I can pronounce his name. Pier Battista Pizzaballa. I can say pizza. Pizzaballa. Clearly Italian, right? Born in 1965. That'd be the year Aaron was born. He is an Italian Catholic, a Franciscan friar. And he served as the Custos of the Holy Land from 2004 to 2016, and as an apostolic administrator of the Latin Patriarchate from 2016 to 2020, and he was made cardinal by Pope Francis in 2023. I have another article we looked up about him today after talking about him on radio. Here it is, EWTN. This is an article that is dated from 2025, March 25th, 2024, I should say, March 25th, 2024, an article that they're citing from the Catholic Register. But here you go. They're talking about how he has skyrocketed, meteoric rise. Tell me about this, gentlemen, because Pope Francis is quite ill. They could be getting a new pope. Wouldn't that be something to get a guy that's been overseeing Israel and quite aware of the situation in Israel?
Yeah, absolutely, Brandon. And there's a custom in the Catholic Church that they have to have 12 cardinals chosen in preparation in case something happens to the Pope. And lo and behold, the Pope at the moment is in a critical condition. So they are going about this process of going to decide very soon who will be out from those 12 cardinals, who will be the next Pope. And I remember about a year and a half, 2 years ago, reading that out of the 12 that were chosen, the cardinal, that man that you just mentioned, with the name Pizza, he was the leading candidate. And I remember when I saw it, thinking, "Wow!" Having and even reading the Israeli newspapers, which says "Humi Shelanu," he's one of ours. Now, I'm not quite sure if he's Jewish, but he is Catholic, and he resides. His his jurisdiction is Jerusalem, and I think that is very symbolic and could play some kind of role in prophetic end time events.
Yeah, it could. And I want to get Dr. Lindstedt to respond to that. This article is saying that he became the cardinal over that area just right after Hamas. I think that's what we just read. Let me do a control F on that. Hamas, Hamas. He had been a cardinal for just a week when Hamas launched this devastating attack in southern Israel last October. Wow. Okay. Give us your thoughts on this, Dr. Lindstedt. I mean, here we were saying the other day, will the next, I don't know, we put out a description of something on our website. Could the next pope be the last pope, as many have talked about, for decades, the quote, last pope? There's been so-called, quote, prophecies that people have had about the last pope and warning about the last pope. And again, I'm not trying to disparage my Catholic friends. I mean, we have problems within our own Protestant denomination with the Southern Baptist Convention and many of our denominations being apostate and woke and everything else. So far be it from me to criticize the Catholic church that has its own problems, just like the Protestant church does. And I'll also just throw in this disclaimer. The one world religion, folks, is going to be made up of a lot of so-called, quote, Christians, a lot of New Age Christians, a lot of socialist Christians, a lot of ecumenical so-called Christians. So again, I'm not picking on my Catholic friends here. And you may have a few very prominent so-called evangelical Christians involved in this one world religion. But many have wondered what role the Vatican will play in the one world religion in the last days, and particularly the Pope. So after all those disclaimers, speak to that, please, Dr. Lindstedt.
Yeah. Well, we have some key passages about the false Trinity. And that's in Revelation chapter 13. I say the false Trinity because in the true Trinity, there's God the Father, there's God the Son, there's God the Holy Spirit. And so I would say that Satan himself, the devil, he's called the dragon in Revelation chapter 12, he would correspond to God the Father. Then there's a false Christ. He would correspond to Jesus Christ. Then there's a false prophet. The Holy Spirit always gives credence to the Son of God. The Holy Spirit doesn't really ask for worship for himself. He wants you to worship God the Father. He wants you to worship Jesus Christ. So when we come to the book of Revelation, chapter 12, we see that the dragon, Satan, falls from heaven. He knows his time is short. And when he does, he calls on two assistants. And one of those, it says that it's a beast. The first beast comes up out of the sea. I think the sea is the Gentile world power. So I think that this Antichrist is going to be a Jew that comes out of the Gentile nations. But it says later that the dragon gave him power. So he gets his power from Satan. Then you come a little further into chapter 13, and it talks in verse 11, another beast comes. And this beast comes out of the land, out of the earth. And I think that says it's going to be Jewish. So I think the false prophet is going to be a Jew that's associated with Israel. And I think the Antichrist is going to be a Jew that's associated with the powers of the world, the nations of the world, together. And the second beast, he also speaks like a dragon. He sounds just like the devil himself. So what do? Well, they deceive people. They promise one thing, and they deliver another. They're going to promise Israel that they can worship on the Temple Mount, and they're going to stop the worship halfway through. Everything they say somehow is to trick you, to deceive you. That's a key word in Matthew 24 and in the book of Revelation, deceive. They talk peace, and then they give destruction. They talk freedom, and then they say, unless you take the mark, you have no freedom to buy, sell, trade, or anything else. So everything they say, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's always to deceive and trick you. So I think that to have a connection between the Vatican and Israel somehow fits in very well with these end-time Trinity figures that we have mentioned in the book of Revelation, chapter 12 and 13.
Here is an article dated December 25th, 2024. Look at that. By the way, welcome back to the controls, Thomas. Thomas, welcome back. He's laughing. Could Pierre Batista Pizzaballa, that's his last name. I guess, could we call him Pope Pizza if he wins? Pope Pizza? Will he be, Pope Pizza? Will he be the next Pope? Here's an article dated December 25th, 2024, already asking the question, right? Talking about his role there in Jerusalem. And then they went on to the bottom of the article here to ask, well, what does he believe? Theologically, is he a liberal or a conservative? They're saying, well, politically, does he lean to the left or the right? The truth is that he's remarkably hard to tell. Unlike many of his rivals, he's not one to inflame the church's divisions. Sounds like a politician. Sounds like a politician to me, Aaron.
You know, the sky's the limit. If he was to be the elected one, just using his seat and name of Jerusalem, I mean, the prestige to that, and then think about what that may, or how that may affect the nations of the Abraham Peace Accords. You know, wouldn't it be a nice gesture to get the seated Pope of Jerusalem, you know, into these Abraham Peace Accords? Maybe the Vatican itself might join in as well, although I'm not sure if the Abraham Peace Accords are strictly for Muslim nations or not. But he could perhaps sit as the chairman or some kind of office there. As I say, the sky's the limit. It really, it's going to be interesting to see this unfold.
It says here he's wanted to be you can actually, I think, go to the website of the Cardinals and read about them. I mean, you can do some of your own research on this guy. It's pretty fascinating to read about. Apparently, he was raised in a very happy home, lived in kind of a rural area, enjoyed a simple, rural, and happy childhood. At the age of 9, he already knew he wanted to be a priest. It says that at the age of 11, he entered the Le Grazi Minor Seminary in Rimini, run by the Franciscans. And then, of course, it talked about his first trip to Israel. He arrived in Jerusalem. He arrived first in Jerusalem on October 7th. Whoa! 1990.
October 7th.
What? Isn't that
interesting
ironic?
Date.
Isn't that an interesting date? Folks, you're finding all this out live on television. October 7th, he arrives there in 1990. Of course, we all know about the terrorist attack on October 7th, right? Kind of interesting just in itself. At the age of 25, he spoke, quote, only Italian and the native dialect of Bergamo, end quote, reflecting on those first days in the Holy Land. He called, quote, he was still the first intifada. I arrived the evening of the 7th, the day after, on the 8th, right where I was in the Muslim quarter on the Esteplanade of Mosque. There was a clash between Israeli military and Palestinians, which resulted in 22 deaths. So it was a particular way to begin my entire time there, end quote. Describing those days as both a cultural shock and a spiritual desert. Quote, it was difficult for me to understand why I was there. I didn't speak the languages. I didn't understand all the violence, which for me was very foreign. Then we were on the eve of the Gulf War. So there were curfews everywhere. It wasn't simple, but it was salutary in the sense that it forced me to find the deep and real reasons for my vocation and for my obedience, end quote. Recognizing his love of the Old Testament, the new provincial then sent him to the Hebrew University of Jerusalem from 95 to 99, and in 98 became the assistant professor of biblical Hebrew and Judaism at the Stadium Biblicum Franciscum and the Stadium Theological. I'm not even going to mess with these names. Pizzaballa was the only Christian studying scripture at the Hebrew University at the time, but said it was, quote, very interesting, quote, because it was the first time he found himself in a non-Christian context. Having formed friendships with Jewish classmates, he said, quote, they began to ask me questions about my faith and my vocation, why I was there. And then little by little, we talked about the gospel, the New Testament. We would read it together. It was a beautiful experience. For me, this is what true interreligious dialogue is, because the questions of these Jews who didn't know about Jesus were not my own. I came from the Bassa Bergamatska, where you're Christian because you are born, so you know everything about Jesus. While there are questions, for instance, of the resurrection were never put to me in that way. It was very beautiful, end quote. The cardinal now speaks and preaches in English. As for modern Hebrew, he learned it so well, fluently. Says the Israeli website that within 5 years of his arrival, he collaborated in editing the Roman Missal in Hebrew and translated it in various liturgical texts. He translated those. July 2nd, 99, after 9 years in Jerusalem, he formally entered the service with the custody of the Holy Land, the Franciscan province in the Middle East. Man alive. I don't know about you guys, but we're reading this right here in real time, having just discovered this. What do you make of this, Dr. Lindstedt?
Well, one thing that's strikingly in comparison to the present Pope, every chance he gets, he promotes a two-state solution. He's definitely pro-Palestinian. I mean, he sides with the Palestinians on every situation, and criticized Israel even when they begin to fight in Gaza, saying we want to try to get the people that they've taken captive back. So he's been pro-Palestinian from the very beginning. I think that this new person would be one who would be pro-Israel. And after all, if you look at what he does in terms of allowing Israel to begin let's say, doing sacrifices on the Temple Mount, I think he would be very pro-Israel in that. So it would certainly be a change, and it would be a change that seems to fit very well in Scripture in terms of end-time rulers. We can't say that, he's the false prophet or any of that. We're not trying to say that. We're just saying that it looks like the theology that he would have would certainly be a contrast and a comparison to the current Pope that we have in office now.
Well, and indeed, and he'll play a big role one way or the other. That's just for the nature of the office. Taking stock of his first 2 years as Custos in 2006, he said his priorities would include, quote, interaction with the Jewish world, end quote. Seeing that, quote, traditionally the custody has always been close to the Arab world, end quote. The approach, listen now, the approach was a wise one that helped establish himself as a trusted broker between the two embattled peoples. Aaron. Wow.
Fantastic. Absolutely great. It seems like he's got a real heart for the Jewish people. He on a social level, he's made some bridges there. I mean, the guy sounds like an absolute scholar in the Old Testament. But let's see what kind of theology really he has at the end of the day. He may be a genius, he may be a scholar, but he also may hold on to replacement theology. We don't know. On the other hand...
Which for the audience, the new people, replacement theology would be basically merging Catholicism with Marxism, which is very common with the Jesuits. I mean, they were big into that.
Yeah. But on the other hand, he could actually be a genuinely nice man who really has a genuine, deep heart for the Jewish people, for people at large from all areas. And who knows, he may even be a pawn. Without him realizing it, he may be a pawn that the Vatican may use. I don't know, but it will be very interesting seeing this unfold before our eyes. That's, of course, if he is the chosen one. We don't know for sure yet, but we do know that he was slated as the outstanding candidate among the 12.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was chosen by Pope Francis to be named among the new cardinals he would create on September 30th of that year. Thus became the first Latin patriarch of Jerusalem to raised to the cardinal slot, and the first cardinal reside in the state of Israel. On October 7th, 2023, 1 week after the attack there in Israel between Hamas and Israel, following an attack in Israel by Hamas militiamen from Gaza. 2 weeks later, the patriarch called for a day of prayer and fasting for peace, just having said he was ready to offer himself as a hostage in exchange for the release of the children who had fallen into the hands of a Hamas terrorist. Now, I did not know that till I just read it. He offered himself up as a hostage. If you'll let the children go, you can have me. You got your mouth open and shaking your head. Are you stunned by this, Aaron?
No, the guy sounds like a saint. Absolute. That's
It's like something right out of typecasting out of Hollywood, isn't it, Dr. Lindstedt?
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing resume.
Absolutely.
Wow. A few days later, the patriarch issued an appeal to stop this war, this senseless violence, stating, quote, with clarity that what happened on October 7th in southern Israel is in no way admissible, and we cannot but condemn it, end quote, while stating, quote, with equal clarity today that this new cycle of violence has brought Gaza over 5,000 deaths, including many women and children, quote. He took possession of his church on May 1st, 2024, 2 weeks later than scheduled due to the hostilities. Later the month, after long months of negotiations with authorities, he was able to personally enter Gaza, celebrating Mass in the Catholic parish of the Holy Family and visiting the Orthodox parish. He carries a joint humanitarian mission with the Order of Malta to provide food and medical assistance to the population of Gaza. The timing of his elevation to the cardinal slot and the conflict that exploded shortly thereafter have inevitably increased the world's attention on this cardinal, who since the years has his tenure as cultus of the Holy Land has operated in an area of significance for the history of salvation as it's complex and plagued by perennial tensions. Little is known about him theologically or doctrinally because he rarely addresses controversial issues. But from what we do know of his words and actions, it's possible to discern a desire to abide by the orthodox traditions and practices of the church while also remaining open to modernity. He strongly believes in the centrality of Christ in the Eucharist, has a fervent Marian devotion, meaning to Mary, and is a great believer in the path of sanctification through tribulation and that great crucible of suffering that is the Middle East. The Latin patriarch appears to care deeply for his flock, as was visibly seen during the Hamas-Israel war. His long experience in the Holy Land means he's able to engage both sides in this seemingly intractable conflict. Unafraid to speak out, he has striven to treat Arabs and Israelis with basically equality, but with an equalness, but arguably more sympathetic for the Palestinian people whom he sees as still waiting for their rights, their dignity, or recognition. Okay, anybody want to comment on any of this?
Well, I was just thinking, Brandon, up until that statement you just read, I was just about to say, he doesn't sound like he's getting involved in politics at all. It sounds like he's more interested in, human kindness. But, you've just read something that shows that he does have a concern for the Palestinian people and their rights. But again, I wonder if a lot of what you just read is, I'm sure it's probably pre-October the 7th. Now it's just a different ball game, totally different ball game. And it would be interesting to hear his comments now, what he thinks now about the Palestinian people and whether he really sees that they are pretty much siding with Hamas. And, a man in his position, he has to be careful. He has to be very careful. If he makes statements, those statements may come back to haunt him if he isn't careful, because things can change. October the 7th has radically changed the face of all the Palestinian people now. Hamas and the Palestinian people are one and the same. I think any person that is seeking honesty and truth should be able to see that by now.
The Jesuit magazine, AmericanMagazine.org, this is a Jesuit magazine, energetic, resolute, modern, deeply cosmopolitan, Patriarch Pizzaballa shares the Pope's intention to restore the somewhat backwater reputation of Jerusalem to its former glory. That's the Jesuit magazine. So they have a long piece, a long written up piece about him. This is going to be interesting to follow because, again, the significance is, in fact, I even have another article here I think I want to show the headline for, is the next Pope at the Synod? Now, this was written back October 4th, 2024. Roughly half of all cardinal electors are currently in Rome, making the Synod on synodality something of a prelude to a future conclave. So they're like, basically, the next Pope is here. That's what they were basically saying if you read the article. comment on all this, Dr. Lindstedt? We move to another quick topic on Israel.
Well, it's so interesting because we see how that many of the qualities that this new person would have would be very different than the present one. The present Pope is really, I can say, pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel.
And a Marxist. And a Marxist.
Yeah, and a Marxist. And so I can see where he would be embraced by the Jewish people, even if later they found out that he deceived them. But I think they would say this is a refreshing change, because what's there now is just, it's really over the top. He continues to side with Hamas and with the Palestinians.
This is going to get real interesting real fast we'll have plenty of news. I told Logan a couple nights ago, I said, Logan, get ready. We're going to have lots of news coming, covering on the Pope when he passes, his passing, his state funeral. Then you got the Cardinals coming in. You got them meeting. We'll be going through the candidates, which we've already started here. And then they'll go into conclave, and we'll be waiting for the white smoke to come out of this chimney stack. I mean, this is going to get really interesting real fast. What a time to be on the front row, guys. All right, let's switch real quick to the hostages. What's the latest on the ground in Israel related to releasing more hostages and, sadly, the bodies of some deceased hostages, Aaron?
In the coming days, we will receive 3 more living hostages. I don't know the number of dead. I think I read maybe 6 somewhere. So that's a bittersweet bit of news. There will be rejoicing for the ones that are alive, no doubt. The ones that are dead, while on one hand it will bring about a sense of closure, and the families will be able to properly grieve their loved ones. I was reporting before, Brandon, that it's getting the hostages back, dead or alive, is one thing, but not to forget that we are giving back literally dozens and even hundreds of prisoners, and many of them are cold-blooded murderers, and it's bringing up a lot of pain, especially for those whose loved ones were either murdered or maimed for life by these terrorists, who are now going to be out on the streets. Even in the last couple of weeks, the ones that have been released, some have even been killed. Some have already been associated with terror, with planning certain things. In fact, just the other night, when 15 buses were found to have bombs on it, apparently the ones that were caught, they mentioned some of the names in the interrogation of some of these prisoners who've just been released. So very sad, very painful, but at least we're going to be getting at least 3 more captives back. And by the way, there were some reports that Mr. Donald Trump is starting to lose his patience a little bit, because, you know, the way that Hamas are using our hostages as leverage and manipulating and holding Israel at bay, he's not the kind of man that likes that kind of stuff happening to him. And there is some reports, Brennan, that now that we've got a number of hostages back that will satisfy the people of Israel to a degree, that maybe it's like our patience is running thin, and that we may just go and start to blast Hamas, because this phase 2 of this whole negotiation hasn't quite started yet, and there's problems. Hamas are playing around, playing mind games, and it could be that we may just go in at whatever cost it takes, knowing that we've already got some hostages back. We'll have to wait and see how this plays out.
Let's cover this real quick. Israel's shield for Syria's Druze and the regional shakeup no one expected. This is a big deal, according to this article. Before Assad's fall, Netanyahu never would have considered extending Israel's protection to the Syrian Druze. That he is doing so now underscores how much has changed. Can you quickly comment on that before we have to wrap?
Yeah, well, the Druze, we have Druze living in Israel, and some of their family even live in Syria. Some of these people
a bunch of those kids were blown to pieces.
That's right. They were all
on the AstroTurf playing sports. Soccer field.
That's right. Soccer field. That's right. 18 children. So the Druze have they've showed their cards. They've said, we live in Syria, but we don't want to live under Giuliani's rule. We would rather live under Israel's rule. So there's 3 major communities in South Lebanon, and Israel are basically siding with them and working out a way to protect them. And there you got the article that you just read. We're providing a shield for them. So, that's going to be good for relations with the Druze people on both sides.
And then look at this headline. Iran rushes to upgrade their air defenses, fearing joint Israel-U.S. attack. Dr. Lindstedt, your thoughts there?
Well, Iran is doing everything it can to not be attacked because they're quite weak right now. They've lost Syria as their bumper, their isolation. Syria's toppled. Russia and Iran are having a little bit of difficulty right now because they're competing for some similar property. I think another one that we need to throw in the mix is Turkey. Turkey just came out with a statement saying that really the last nation that the Palestinians were citizens of all things, was the Ottoman Empire. So they say that really not the United States should go back in and take Gaza, but it should be Turkey that comes in and takes over Gaza and the Palestinians. Uh-huh. And so this is it's like a blender. Every time you think you can figure out the sides, it changes again. And I think that one thing that's really important, did you see the release of the bodies? And I'm going to call it the victory parade that they made as they delivered the bodies back. It wasn't a funeral. It was a celebration. What mockery to these people whose only crime was they were born Jewish. And so I think the world really saw the true state of Hamas. On my phone, I know, Brandon, you have it too. We have an alert system. This morning I got an alert that they had actually fired several rockets.
Yep, it woke me up. It woke me up, and I said to my wife, wow, it's been a while since I've heard that rocket alert go off. And I think one was shot down. I think another one actually landed. It was misfired. It landed right in the Gaza Strip area itself. So have they learned anything during the ceasefire? And the answer is no. They're as brutal as they've ever been. And so these people celebrated the death of this family. These people, look at the people that they're releasing, those that are alive. And if you take a look at the face, there's horror on their face. What they've been through is horrible. They nearly starved them. They've tortured them in every way. And so there's a violation of every civil right that's known to mankind. And yet the International Committee and the International Court, they continue to take the side of the Hamas terrorists. Yep.
So,
and in fact, we even got this headline. The Palestinian Authorities, Abbas, payments to terrorists will continue even if we have 1 cent left. So as said on radio today, good luck with a 2-state solution. These people don't learn. They have no desire to learn. They only want one thing. That's the elimination of the Jewish people. And there you go. I want you to both comment before I have to wrap. There's so much news tonight. But we mentioned it on radio today, the oil and how much oil Israel has. You made a very interesting comment, and then Dr. Lindstedt responded from the scriptures on that. Tell our audience what you said today on radio, Aaron, about oil in Israel.
Yeah, I was saying that in between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, there is an area called the Shvela, which means the lowlands, Beit Shemesh area, which is a lot of biblical area. But underneath the ground there, it's been estimated that Israel has the equivalent amount of oil that Saudi Arabia has. And they have discussed digging. It's very deep. I'll let Dr. Rob talk about how deep it is. But the other problem is the environmentalists, because it's in such a lush, beautiful area of the country. But that could be a game changer. We talked about the war of Gog and Magog and the people coming and taking the spoils from Israel, and that could be a future biblical prophecy unfolding before our eyes.
Because, and then Dr. Lynn said you brought in the scripture about dipping your toe, basically, so like in the oil, right?
Yes, the Bible talks about how that the land of Israel, when God allowed Moses or Joshua to come in and to divide the land. Remember, Moses got to look at it, but it was Joshua who came in and divided the land, divided it based on their tribes. And Asher was given a section of land, and the piece of ground that he has, it looks like a foot. And so it says, but it talks about the foot of Asher, that there would be wealth and it would be abundance that you would suck from the sand. I really think that abundance, that wealth that will be sucked from the sand, I think is Israel. It's oil. So I think that in a coming day, God has blessed Israel in a number of ways. And that blessing was enumerated by Isaac. Remember, Isaac had Jacob and Esau. Esau, born first, well, he had the birthright, but he didn't think it to be valuable. And so he sold it for a bowl of soup. In other words, he said the family blessing, the spiritual blessing, because it involved both. He was given a double portion, but he was also given leadership. And he said, I'm not interested in that. I'll trade it for a bowl of soup. So he's essentially saying the spiritual blessing means nothing to me. I'm a physical person. I represent the flesh. So and Jacob, he was a conniver. He was a used car salesman or a used camel salesman, and so he took him up on it. So remember how his mother brings him in to get the blessing from Isaac, who's going blind. And he said, "Boy, your voice kind of sounds like Jacob, but remember they put the goat skin on his arm, and he felt the arm and said, no, you're hairy like your brother Esau. He was an outdoorsman, a hunter." And so Isaac gives him the blessing, and he gives him the dew of heaven, gives him the corn and the crops of the land, and then he says the fatness, or the word fatness often is translated oil, the oil of the land. His ownership was given to Jacob. Now, when Esau comes in a few verses later, remember the Bible said he'd no sooner gone out than Esau comes in. He says, "Father, here's the venison I prepared for you." And Isaac said, "What do you mean? I've already given the blessing away." And then he realized, oh, your deceiver brother took the blessing. And Esau weeps. He wails. He says, "Is there yet one blessing? You got to give me some blessing." And so he says, "You're going to dwell where the oil is, but the ownership is not yours." And so I really think in God's timing, we're going to see that God blessed Israel with the land that he said would be a promised land. And that land would be crops. It would be a land of milk and honey. I think it's also going to be a land of wealth. Gas, they've already discovered. Incredible, the amount of gas that they have. And next, I think oil. And so just as Aaron was saying, several years ago, an oil man in Texas named Andy Sorrell, I remember going to the site of a well there. They talked about how there was a huge show of oil there, but it was deep. And the technological problems of drilling that deep, because we're talking of wells that are 27,000 feet deep. In America, we think a deep well is 3,000, maybe 7,000, but nothing even close to that. And so it's hard to get a bit to go down. It's hard to get it to go straight. So these deep wells are going to determine the timing of when God blesses them with oil. I think they're going to see a great oil show in Israel. Earthquake, maybe that's what it takes to get it.
Wow, fascinating. And of course, this sets up Gog Magog in part, as it says God puts a hook in their mouth and draws them out, and they come in for the treasures of Israel, which may include oil, but it also could include gold. It also could include all kinds of, rattle it off real quick. What's in the Dead Sea, Aaron?
Well, apart from the salt, you've got hundreds of millions of cubic meters of magnesium, zinc, gypsum, bromide, potassium, potash, and we've been extracting these using them, mixing them with metals, using them for medicinal purposes, using them for health, selling them all around the world. And there's still a lot more in that Dead Sea.
Wow. And here's a headline from the Jerusalem Post back in 23, how it really was Israel's first oil discovery. You'll find several more. Here's another one. Potential game changer oil reserves discovered in Israel. That's back in 2015. So again, all of this is helping set up, I think, the fulfillment of Bible prophecy, and maybe even the picking of a new pope is going to help move the narration along of what so much of we three gentlemen do and study all the time, which is such a fascinating part about what we do. Aaron Lavarco, his website is lighthenationsministry.com. Dr. Lindstedt is BibleTipNow.org, BibleTipNow.org. Aaron's brought to you by our foundation. We send him love offerings regularly to pay him for standing in the freezing cold and on cold concrete without the proper footwear. But he suffers for us, and of course, we want to reward him and honor him as a workman's worthy of his hire to be available to us at all hours of the day and night to bring us these great reports. So if you appreciate his work and ministry with us, support us through our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com, as we support him with those love offerings. Fair enough, Aaron?
Fair enough. Yes.
All right.
Thank you. I'm going to go and dip my feet, not in oil, but in warm water.
Go do it. You deserve it, my friend. Thank you, Dr. Lindstedt.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Again, guys, I appreciate both of those guys. And man, what a time God has allowed us to providentially have a man on the ground in Israel. As a news guy for so many years, doing radio and TV and building a news group here, I never believed we would have a reporter on the ground in Israel. And the Bible says that if you commit your ways to the Lord, he'll do beyond what you can imagine in your life. And that has clearly happened providentially, nothing we can boast in. So praise the Lord for that. And then to work with a guy like Neil McCabe, our DC reporter, and to be on the front line on so many of these issues, it's really an exciting time. And to work with someone like Dr. Lindstedt for 30 years now, we're having a great time, I'll tell you that. All right. Again, if you appreciate what we're doing, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Again, look at how we just did that long interview, folks. And did we take a news break? No, we didn't. I mean, a commercial break? No. We did not disrupt the flow of great information. We just kept bringing it to you. So please go there now, worldviewfoundation.com. Otherwise, we can sell pickup trucks and soap. And, we get on about a weekly basis, companies contacting us saying, we want to take over all your advertising and fill you up with commercials. I'm like, no. Our people want content. Content is king here, folks, in part. So again, if you appreciate the format we've chosen, this is the format we've chosen, but only because you support us in part through our sponsors at worldviewtube.com/sponsors, who only give to us, by the way, when you buy those products. So every time you buy one of those products, they're giving us a small portion back. And then the other way is worldviewfoundation.com. You'll find our mailing address there. Please, worldviewfoundation.com. We need your support. We're only limited in what we can do, really, by resources. So as you give, we grow. worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you for that. Again, you'll find it all there at worldviewfoundation.com. One more time, I'll show you. Don't forget, you got a phone number there if you prefer to give online, and the phone number and address is all there. worldviewfoundation.com. Joining me now is Dr. Mark Lucky. He is the author of the book Inflammaging, Unlocking the Secrets to Inflammation and Aging and Testosterone. Be better in the boardroom, bedroom, and the ball field. Both of these are available on Amazon. You can see them right here on my screen. Just type in Dr. Mark Lucky, Luckie, and they'll pop right up. He also has the book on sleep to repair as well. I wanted to bring it back on because my wife has been taking your brand new restorative sleep gummies. Okay, I'm going to tell you the full story. She took the first couple days, she took one a night. And I said, how's it going for you? Did nothing for me, she said. Nothing. I said, oh, okay. Well, then she went to bed, took one, and she's tired of getting up in the middle of the night and then not being able to get back to sleep. Okay? So she said, we go to bed one night. Last week, she said, I think I'm going to take two. I think the instructions call for that. Take two sleep gummies before bed to relax, sleep deeply, and wake up refreshed. So she said, I think I'm going to take two instead of one. I said, okay. She did. She did this for a couple days. She said, Brandon, you've got to talk about the sleep, restorative sleep, because I've been getting up at weird hours of the day and of the night because the dog will start scratching one of the dogs, one of the mini schnauzers, or Delta will move around or whatever. I got two mini schnauzers and a lab in the king-size bed. and they'll wake her up. Or she gets up to go to the bathroom and then gets back in bed and can't get to sleep. She is saying now that she's taking 2, she's sleeping through the night. And she even said she wasn't having to get up and go to the bathroom, which I think is, again, because she's so sound asleep that her body isn't worried about it. Whereas when you're just kind of semi-asleep, your body's like, oh, you better get up, go to the bathroom. And so I was having that same thing when I got on Bella Grace. When I got on Bella Grace, I quit getting up 3 or 4 times a night. And now I only get up once. And Dr. Mark Miller said, I think it's because you're sleeping better. And since you're sleeping better, you're not needing to get up and go to the bathroom as much. But my wife has gone from 1 gummy to now 2. And she's saying, Brandon, now I'm sleeping through the night and sleeping deeper. You're really got to tell this because a lot of people have sleeping issues. What do you make of my wife's testimony?
I'm thrilled about it. You know, as you just were about to say, 35% Americans are not getting the recommended sleep that they need on a nightly basis, and 45% of the world's population don't get the sleep they need. Sleep is when you heal. Sleep is when you repair. Sleep is when you reboot for the next day, Brandon.
So it becomes a health issue, does it not? If you don't get enough sleep, you're going to start seeing it in your health. How? What do you see when people don't get enough sleep? How does it manifest itself in health?
So a couple of ways. Number one, it's going to put more stress on your heart. It's also going to put more stress on your immune system, and it certainly affects your mental clarity as well. But it goes much deeper than that. You know, when you're not thinking clearly, you can't make the right decisions about your diet. Your hormones get out of balance. Your mood changes with your spouse, your mood changes with your kids. Things like that really affect us on a daily basis. So I ask people to think about it all the time. What is the lack of sleep costing you in your job, with your relationships with your family, and then also with the relationship with yourself, your dreams and your goals?
Here's a this is even, I think, NPR. Look at this. Look at this. Here we go, guys. Let's play this. You guys ready? Here we go.
Getting a good night's sleep is easier said than done. According to the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, 50 to 70 million Americans struggle with chronic sleep disorders. We all have a 24-hour internal clock in our brains, a circadian rhythm. It regulates when we feel alert and when we feel sleepy. It also fosters other physical, mental, and behavioral changes. For example, what time of day you'll have the quickest reaction time, or the most muscle strength, or when the body releases melatonin to prepare for sleep. New research suggests that this near musical timing of the human body is crucial. Dr. Jennifer Martin is a professor at the UCLA Medical School and president of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. Dr. Martin, what are we learning, or what have we learned, or what are we learning now about the relationship between sleep and overall health?
Well, it turns out that just about any aspect of health that we might consider is affected by how we sleep. How healthy our heart is, our mental health, our physical well-being, our ability to manage our weight and make healthy food choices, our immune system, our brain. As science evolves, we're just learning more and more about why those changes are occurring, and the promise really that a good night of sleep can help us stay healthy and well and live a good long life.
Well, there you go. And I think that other gentleman might sleep a little better if he got get rid of those weird stuffed animals that you slap over the bed and bedpost. I was like, whoa. But there you go. I mean, and you can just type in, our Americans are not getting enough sleep into YouTube, and you'll find all kinds of news reports just like that. Dr. Lucky?
That's exactly right. And, you know, it's costs you much more than just your focus and your mental clarity. Your health goes down when you're not sleeping. So we put together a comprehensive formula. And I, honestly did not want to use CBD or THC. I wanted to bring together 9 botanicals that were safe and effective. And discussing a little bit about melatonin, melatonin helps you in that sleep-wake cycle, but the other 9 botanicals synergistically work with the melatonin in order for you to get through those first 3 non-rapid eye movement stages and then into REM sleep. And that third stage of non-rapid eye movement, that's where you're going to produce collagen. That's when you're going to reduce the inflammation and the oxidative stress in your body. The REM sleep, that's where you dream. That's where you process emotions. That's where you're putting your memories in your memory bank. So every single sleep stage is important for your health.
Now let's and by the way, if you guys want to get this, it's at melissahousebg.com. This is restorative sleep, melissahousebg.com. You'll find all the elixirs there, the skincare that she loves. You'll find the elixir, which I take every day, she takes every day, that have had huge results for me. You'll find all of these products at melissahousebg.com. Let's talk I want to play another little clip. I like to play other outlets that are saying things so that people realize that there are people out there besides your research or my opinion, because I'm not an expert in this, saying this. I think this right here are two medical doctors that have a show called Health Talk. Listen to what they say.
You know, one of those big topics everybody talks about. What is inflammation? If, you know, for folks out there.
In terms of our bodies, I think of it, if you're going about your daily life and you're managing inflammation in your body, all systems are go. You should be sleeping well, feeling well, as opposed to so many of us are walking around in what I call a pro-inflammatory state. And so the way to think of it is, if you're waking up every single day and your joints hurt, you know, throughout the day, you just feel sluggish. You're not sleeping well at night. You have high stress levels. You know, to me, at the cellular level, yeah, things are going on. But for the individual, I think of that as a pro-inflammatory life.
But can we measure inflammation?
Well, there are things you can look at. Like you can look at your C-reactive protein levels, which can be a marker of inflammation in the body. And there are doctors, a lot of doctors now, who are testing levels of things like CRP. And if it's elevated, following that level, and maybe there are changes in diet, changes in the things that people are doing, increasing activity levels. We know sleep plays a big role.
But, you know, as I said in the intro, you know, we have to care about inflammation because it is associated with medical conditions, right? And I think that that's the point of that you make.
I use the phrase, let food be your medicine, not your poison. And unfortunately, the way that society has evolved, a lot of the foods we eat, a lot of the things we drink are poison to our bodies. And the easiest way to think of it is that, you know, what does a poison do? Well, it causes inflammation. What does your medicine do? Is it decreases inflammation. So for me, one of the big things I do hosting the doctors is I really try to talk to people about, you know, how can you live your life in such a way that you're happy, you're enjoying it, the food you eat, you love, but it's also acting as medicine.
We always talk about foods that are bad for you, and we talk about foods that are quite good for you and should be part of your daily routine, or at least your daily diet. Let's talk about the bad things. You know, give me some examples.
Well, the easiest thing that I would say is the more highly processed a food.
Right. So the refined carbs, the refined sugars, the processed this and that with 1,000 chemicals in it.
Absolutely. If you look at the refined carbs are a great example, but it's not always something as simple as the sugars that you may find in sodas. You know, when I look at the way a lot of people eat, sometimes it's as simple as you order a sandwich at lunch and you get it on a refined white bread. Well, the difference between ordering on a refined white bread versus a whole grain bread can literally be the difference between a healthy lunch and an unhealthy lunch.
All right, let's stop there. So there's things we're doing each and every day that are adding to the inflammation. The inflammation then gives you not only pain, as he was talking about, but it starts to impact your immune system as well, correct?
Absolutely. You know, inflammation is the root cause of all disease. And what you'll find in my book, Inflammaging, 50% of all deaths worldwide can be contributed back to that inflammation as well. I mean, there were so many gems in what he said in the grocery stores. If you want to stay away from those pro-inflammatory foods, just shop on the outside aisles. Don't go in the middle unless you're trying to get things for, you know, laundry detergent and those types of things, but stay on the outside. That's where your fruits and vegetables are. That's where your nuts are. That's where your healthy meats are. So that would be my advice.
And then leaky gut. I want to come back to that because I think it was you that taught me that your gut is actually lined with collagen, which I didn't know until our last interview. And my hands quit cracking and bleeding when I got on the Bella Grace. It's loaded with the collagen with the peptides cut short. And you're like, well, that again is the lining of your gut is collagen. You take collagen, the leaky gut stops, and your psoriasis and your hands cracking and bleeding year round, they stopped. I mean, all of this is connected, is it not?
That's right. You know, when we see patients in our office and they're having a lot of skin irritations, whether it be eczema, psoriasis, we go back and look at that gut. And he was right. C-reactive protein. I want to hit that 1 second. My wife's C-reactive protein was a 19.8 at 30. She was about 38 years of age when we did that test on her. They told her she was going to have a major cardiac event if she didn't change that. And that's when we found the Bella Grace Elixir. She started taking it 3 months. It went from a 19.8 to a 1.8. So he's absolutely correct.
And how do you get that tested? Just your blood gets tested?
It's a blood test, and it's not very expensive at all. So I wanted to say that, but yes, going back to what you asked me, and I ran short on that question. Ask me again.
The leaky gut, the inflammation,
yes,
the immune system. That's all. This is all tied together, right?
All tied together. Your as you said, your GI tract, and that goes from your tongue all the way down to your exit holes, is lined with collagen. And when you eat the wrong foods or pro-inflammatory foods, or foods that your immune system cannot keep up with, you're going to develop permeable, smaller holes in your GI tract. Your small intestines is where you absorb nutrients. And when you're having a problem there, you're getting undigested food particles, very small ones, through that gut. Your immune system attacks it. And now your immune system is constantly just worried about the food you're eating, doesn't have time for anything else. So you start having all kind of health issues, whether it be skin irritations, headaches, could be other things happening in your body. Again, with our Bella Grace Elixir, we cannot treat disease. We only give the body what it needs so that it can heal from the inside out and allow your body to do what it does best.
And he just said food is medicine, and that's a phrase I'm hearing more and more people use. I know you use it a lot. So
yes, sir.
This is why Big Pharma and some of those groups that have been hijacked by Big Pharma, you know, your FTC, Federal Trade Commission, FDA. A lot of these groups have been hijacked by people that have a revolving door between Big Pharma and the Federal Trade Commission, Big Pharma and the Federal Trade Commission. And in my opinion, you can agree or disagree, they use the things like the Federal Trade Commission to try to fine and punitively punish financially people that are truth tellers, because they don't want people to know the truth, because they need you to buy your medicine, not eat your medicine. And so because the revolving door between corporate CEOs and corporate execs at the pharmaceutical world and labs into the Federal Trade Commission or CDC, it's an incestuous relationship. So they're going to go out and use government money and power to destroy the truth tellers who are hurting their bottom line by saying, look, you don't need all these pharmaceuticals. What you need is the right food. Food is medicine. Pharmaceuticals largely just is treating a symptom. Your problem is your lack of nutrition. Let's talk about your nutritional needs, whether it's what you just talked about with your wife or whatever it might be. Mine being, leaky gut, which is causing, my psoriasis and hands cracking and bleeding or whatever. Or the fact that I'm having to sleep sitting almost straight up for a long time, for years, because of massive acid reflux, and I'm trying to take a Pepcid every day. But I get on Bella Grace, and I haven't taken a Pepcid since December 2023. These are all nutritional answers that make Big Pharma zero money. So they take over the power of the government agencies to crush and destroy the truth tellers that hurt their bottom line in Big Pharma. True or false?
That's absolutely 1,000% true. Let's talk about Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine. He says, let food be thy medicine. So that goes back many, 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 many centuries. I wanted to touch base too on, there is no money for the pharmaceutical companies if the medical doctors are talking about cleaning up your diet. There's no money in food. But what we do know is we've got somebody now working with the White House that is coming out strong in Robert F. Kennedy, talking about these things. So we're starting to see people really wanting to do better and think better and act better and eat better and not drink so much alcohol and get off the cigarettes and do all those things that will help them be a healthier person.
Now, you mentioned alcohol real quick. I hate alcohol. I don't like the taste of it, and people are free to do what they want. I don't like the taste of it, number one. But number two, it's terrible for you. It's poison. And I also know of too many people whose lives and businesses and families have been greatly damaged and harmed by alcohol. So I hate alcohol. But everybody's free to do what they want. Well, let's just talk about it from a standpoint of health. It's poison. My wife, I guess, has been following some articles, and she says, Brandon, there's a big trend of young people walking away from alcohol. I said, what? Because, so many young people today, if you look at their social media, I won't name any names, but if you look at their social media, they always have an alcoholic drink in their hand. And these are young people in their 20s. And you're like, well, first of all, you're sweetheart, you're putting on the pounds, okay? Put down the alcohol. You used to be a nice, fit, athletic, attractive gal. Now you've gotten big. And one reason might be because every time you see her on social media, she's got a drink in her hand, right? Alcohol. So, some of them are starting to figure out it's not good for my waistline. Others are trying to figure out it has an impact on their brain, how they feel, depression, anxiety, and then the things they don't know. So as so many young people are into alcohol and drinking, everything seems to revolve around alcohol. But my wife says there's a growing trend of young people ditching alcohol. They realize now long-term, health-wise, it's horrific for them. I didn't know about this. What do you know about it? And what impact does alcohol have on inflammation and aging?
That's so interesting. I'm going to say this again. You and I both have very smart wives, because she was just telling me this the other day. A lot of women between the ages of 25 and 40, they're starting to call themselves crunchy. And I go back to thinking that that's like the granola days. But in reality, what they're saying is they're getting off of those drinks, those nightly wines, or getting together and having one too many. Alcohol turns into sugar in your body, and sugar increases inflammation, and inflammation affects the way you feel, think. Inflammation affects your skin. So these girls are starting to figure out that the more alcohol they drink, the older they're going to look. It's just like the same thing as smoking. Smoking ages you, drinking alcohol ages you. So these people are now starting to realize, hey, we can still go out and have, there's plenty of mushroom drinks now that you can. And when I say mushroom, I mean like lion's mane and healthy, good mushrooms where you can still feel like you're having a cocktail that's non-alcoholic and still enjoy yourself.
So that's exactly what my wife said. She said there is a big market now for drinks that don't have any alcohol in them.
That's right.
Well, here's a little article on this, by the way. Listen to this news report.
Sure.
It's a social habit people have taken part for generations, but we may be seeing more glasses empty.
Just not appealing to me.
I don't know. I don't drink.
I don't drink because of religious reasons.
Recent studies show alcohol consumption with Generation Z is trending downwards. A report from Berenberg Research shows that Gen Z drinks 20% less per capita than millennials. Millennials also drinking less than Gen Xers and baby boomers. A separate report from Australia's University of New South Wales also backs up the trend worldwide, finding 44% of those aged 18 to 24 drinking less than older generations.
I feel like they're just not really as interested, maybe.
I also think people just want to live a healthier lifestyle in general and might not be drinking as much.
There's been a lot more studies, obviously, now than there were before about the side effects of alcohol, drugs.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Dominique Marizano specializes in harm reduction and meets with many clients in that age range.
About 5 years ago, World Health Organization came out with with the reality, basically, that no amount of drinking is healthy.
She believes young people have become more health conscious and have shifted to less harmful substances.
Recently, with the rise of, psychedelic therapies and discussions on psychedelics, I think there's a lot of curiosity among young people about mushrooms, about LSD, about different psychedelics that are out there.
And with the legalization of marijuana, combined with the constant hike of inflation.
And I think that also a lot of people my age have turned to that instead.
Oh, boy. Well, there you talk about going from the frying pan to the fire. You've gone from alcohol to pot. I mean, come on. Again, I don't want to hear from all the people telling me how pot doesn't hurt you. I've done enough studies on that, reading scientists, doctors, of what that, particularly today's marijuana, that is so much stronger than it was in the 70s, what it's doing to you. So what a crime that some of them are now going from the alcohol to the pot. But man, what an interesting topic right there. Comment.
Right, I totally agree with you on that. When I made the comment about mushrooms, there are good mushroom drinks out there that are not psychedelic, that are not drugs. Lion's mane, there's plenty of them where you can mix in a little bit of that with some water, lemon juice, and still, again, feel like you're having a cocktail, which you're not because it's not alcoholic, but it's also not LSD. I'm against those things, just so we're clear on that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what studies you may or have done or read on the pot part of it, but I'm very concerned about Generation Z that is and the legalization of pot to the degree, because again, it's so much stronger than it was in the 60s and the 70s. Some of it is now a synthetic. I mean, this is not going to end well for them, for that generation, the pot.
No, you're exactly right. As you said, the strains are much stronger. We know it affects puberty at a younger age. We know that it makes people not be as productive. And I think that, you know, as people get through those teenage years or college years and into their, you know, having children, it does reduce sperm count as well. You know, we really need to take a look at what we're allowing our children to do these days. And I have a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 27-year-old. And thankfully, my 27-year-old turned away from that lifestyle years ago. And I'm teaching my 13-year-old, my 5-year-old, and my 8-year-old to stay away from it as well.
Yeah, there's nothing good to be gained from it. Zero. I mean, we could talk about so many issues with Dr. Lucky. Here are his 2 books: Inflammaging, Unlocking the Secrets to Inflammation and Aging, Testosterone, Be Better in the Boardroom, Bedroom, and the Ball Field. You can get his 2 books. There is a book on sleep.
It'll be out soon. It'll be out soon.
Okay, there it is. Rest to Repair. Is that what it's called? Rest to Repair. Yep.
Repair.
Available soon. We'll let you guys know when it is. In the meantime, of course, Restorative Sleep, brand new product with 10 botanicals in it as well, all natural, and 10 beauty botanicals in it as well, right?
That's absolutely correct. When you can sleep, your body will repair, your body will reboot, and your skin will glow. No doubt about it.
Do you have some before and after pictures or something?
I do. Let me show you. Let me turn this desktop on. So this is one of my before and after pictures of just Bella Grace. Now, remember, as a practicing healthcare provider, I thought on the left I was healthy. I was eating a good diet, but this is the chronic inflammation that the gentleman was talking about earlier, the cytokines that were going on in my body. And then when I got on the Bella Grace elixir, this is my testimonial here. And then, of course, our weight management product, Bellatrim, we haven't talked a lot about that. You can see I dropped about 35 pounds on that product. I've got other pictures. My friend Linda Paul, you can see how much weight she's lost, and that's Bella Grace Elixir. And then, of course, I shared this picture earlier. This is the picture of our sleep gummies and what's absolutely in it: L-theanine, ashwagandha, chamomile, melatonin, valerian root, 5-HTP, passion flower, lemon balm, turmeric, magnesium. A great comprehensive formula that synergistically works together to get you to fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, but more importantly, or just as importantly, waking up feeling refreshed, waking up feeling focused, and really waking up ready to conquer the day.
And by the way, you're taking the weight management is what you're taking, to lose that 35 pounds?
Yes, sir. I can go back to that.
Bellatrim, and that's there at Molsa House BG as well. All the products are. The Elixir, which it's got 80 clinical trials behind it, by the way. 80 clinical trials. The Bella Grace Skincare, which Melissa loves that. The Bellatrim, which he lost 35 pounds using. It's all natural, plant-based, by the way. And by the way, was it your wife that was saying it's actually really, really good for your cardiovascular health?
Yes, it's going to reduce blood pressure, and that's with some clinical trials as well. It's going to reduce cortisol, but the Bellatrim also is interesting because it lowers your hunger hormone called ghrelin and raises your hormone that makes you feel full called leptin. Now, let's go back to what you said earlier. The gentleman, the medical doctor on the doctor show, he talked about it. The food industry puts things in our food to trick our hunger hormones to make us eat more. Artificial ingredients, artificial sweeteners, where you think you're eating diet foods not to gain weight. It actually tells your body you're hungry or eat more. Well, the Bellatrim does the exact opposite. It lowers that ghrelin, telling you you're not as hungry, raises the leptin, telling you you are more full quicker.
Wow. Of course, if you're full, you're going to stop going by the cabinet and grabbing chips and all that good stuff as well. All of it is there. You want to say something?
I was just going to say, the pantry demons call people out. You eat dinner at 6:37 by 9 o'clock. And I stole that from Mr. Brian Bilbrough, our COO. He talks about the pantry demons at 9 or 9:30. when you take that Bella Trim, it makes you feel fuller. It keeps you fuller longer. It's going to help you reduce that blood sugar. It's going to help you reduce the cortisol. It's going to help you reduce that blood pressure. So
it's all there. MelissaHouseBG.com. MelissaHouseBG.com, and get Dr. Lucky's books available on Amazon. Just type in Dr. Mark Lucky, Luckie, and it'll pop right up. All right. Dr. Lucky, as always, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I was like, if you would like to, follow me on the Instagram at the Dr. Lucky. I put a lot of great information out there, I believe. So
the Dr. Lucky on
Dr.
Instagram.
Lucky.
The Dr. Lucky. Follow him on Instagram. Great. Didn't know that. I'll do that. Thank you, Dr. Lucky.
Thank you, Brandon. Y'all have a great day.
You too, my friend. All right, what a broadcast tonight, wasn't it? Again, folks, if you appreciate what we're doing, I got to tell you, I need your support. Where are you going to get programming like this? And if you like the format, how we don't interrupt it with a gazillion commercials, or maybe you want me to go to commercials and take a commercial break every 10 minutes. Of course you don't. I know you don't. So I need your support. WorldviewFoundation.com, WorldviewFoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Will you do that? And then don't forget, register for the upcoming event in Milwaukee if you can join us in the Waukesha Expo Center. It's free. It's free. You just got to have a ticket. And you can do that at worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/events. Tickets are going fast for that night. Our reporter Aaron Lavarco from Israel will be in the building. Andy Woods. But again, if you're a live streamer, you're going to be a live stream it through the vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. But get your free tickets for this event, folks, in Milwaukee. It's free, but you got to have a ticket so we can put out enough seats. So spread the word about that. We're calling it our Understanding the Times Worldview Radio Rally, aren't we, Dolly? You want to come and say goodnight to everybody? Come on over here and say goodnight to America. Say goodnight, America. Come on up here and say goodnight. That's a good girl. That's a good girl. Hey guys, thanks so much for all your support. Did you know you got a Valentine's card? I keep meaning to bring it to the desk, but there's a sweet lady that sent you a Valentine's Day card, and I keep meaning to bring it to the desk. I got to do that one night. We get a lot of comments about you. People say hello to Dolly. Say hello, Dolly. Yeah. Did you know there's a song about that? Say about hello, Dolly. There's a whole song. Yeah. Barbara Streisand. She was in a movie. I know she's liberal, but she's a good singer and actor or actress. All right. Well, we appreciate it. Roll the music. Have a great night. Thanks again, folks, for promoting us. Oh, by the way, these are flying out the door. Get your pack. Oh, you love these. Get your pack of 20 business cards that promote the Worldview Tube front and back, and you can get a pack of 20 absolutely free. Just go to worldviewstore.com to get them. They're flying out the door, aren't they, Caleb? Yes, they are. Get a free pack. You guys asked for them. You guys like, hey, can you print some business cards? You ever played Old Maid? Pick a card. You would, wouldn't you? You'd pick a card. Sure you would. You can have that one. What are you going to do with it? Make a mess, have to clean up? That's right. You can get a whole pack. You guys asked for these, and so you get a whole pack at worldviewstore.com. Worldviewstore.com. Promote the network. Help us get out the word about the network. Worldviewstore.com. Worldviewstore.com. Till next time, I'm Brandon House. May God save America. Take care.
You are watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brandon House. You are watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brandon House.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at WVWFoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. Hello, I'm Brandon House. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, well, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldview.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brandon House.
And welcome to the broadcast. Glad you are with us on this February 25th, 2025. We're going to be joined by Dr. Rob Lindstedt. Hey, could the minerals in Ukraine be the hook that pulls the U.S. directly into the war in Ukraine? This could be the hook, says this headline, in the jaw that pulls the U.S. directly into the war in Ukraine. We'll talk about that and also some Temple Mount news. And then we're going to go to our reporter on the ground in Israel for more updates, more hostages being released, and sadly, more bodies of deceased hostages. All of that and more today on the Worldview Radio broadcast. We have good news. We have big news coming out of the White House. We actually wrote a letter to some close people around President Trump a couple weeks ago because of the way we were being treated by the White House Correspondents Association. We filled out the application, we paid the money, pointed them to our website, and then they said, I'm sorry, we don't think you qualify to join the White House Press Corps Association as you don't directly report on the White House. To which we said, again, you apparently didn't do your homework or you don't want to see what we're doing. Because we have a 30-minute nightly show where we have a DC correspondent who is absolutely reporting we are on the White House and Capitol and the Supreme Court. So I'll forward this on to some of President Trump's staff or some of his friends that talk with him regularly, which I did. And then we also had some of these news agencies that want to charge us $1,300 a month for feed coming out of the White House. And they are some of the companies that got lots and lots of money, millions of dollars from the government through USAID. And we said, I'm sorry. Now these are basically public utilities, and we shouldn't have to pay for this feed. Or at least we ought to be able to get the feed and offer up our own cameraman to be a part of the pool. But they have clamped this thing down so hard, they clearly don't want the new media involved. So we wrote a few letters and started sending them around and sent them to some key people who then also said they would forward them to key people in the White House orbit. Because we were told by other insiders, you're not the only news agency having this problem. The cabal, apparently, the media cabal, funded with your tax dollars through USAID, we now find out, don't want us in the room. They don't want us part of the press pool. They don't want us having the ability to talk right to you without apparently their filter. And we all know who they work for, the corporate mainstream media. Well, today, I'm pleased to say what we have been waiting now for several weeks to happen has just happened. Logan, do you want to roll that audio? It's the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, informing
as you all know,
the corporate media that things are now changing. Listen to this.
For decades, a group of DC-based journalists, the White House Correspondents Association, has long dictated which journalists get to ask questions of the President of the United States in these most intimate spaces. Not anymore. I am proud to announce that we are going to give the power back to the people who read your papers, who watch your television shows, and who listen to your radio stations. Moving forward, the White House press pool will be determined by the White House press team. Legacy outlets who have participated in the press pool for decades will still be allowed to join, fear not, but we will also be offering the privilege to well-deserving outlets who have never been allowed to share in this awesome responsibility. Just like we added a new media seat in this briefing room, legacy media outlets who have been here for years will still participate in the pool, but new voices are going to be welcomed in as well. As part of these changes, we will continue the rotation amongst the 5 major television networks to ensure the president's remarks are heard far and wide around this world. We will add additional streaming services which reach different audiences than traditional cable and broadcast. This is the ever-changing landscape